Good afternoon and welcome. I call this meeting to order. First thing we'll have is the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. Do we have a report from closed session?
Yes, Mr. President. In the meeting of the 15th of August, we discussed the status of the CDM Smith litigation and specifically some of the documents that we've reviewed as a result of the discovery requests. And we also discussed labor negotiations briefly. And then I was not at this closed session, but I believe on the 28th, the board had another closed session and had some discussions regarding labor negotiations.
Yes. Thank you. Before we go on, we're going to leave the lights down to save on the BTU output so that the hall will stay cooler, hopefully. If it starts to get warm in here, we can open some windows in the back and maybe get a cross breeze going, but it might not be any warmer outside than it is in here, so we'll have to see. Speaking of the weather, oh, very good, Laura. She's got her own fan. Speaking of the weather, it is fire season. And as Director Howell said, you could almost hear the trees drying out. So please be fire safe and fire ready. If you don't have your go bag ready, get your go bag ready because you never know when you might need that thing, okay? Thank you. Agenda review. Anyone have anything that they want to change or anything? I would like to move one item. I'd like to move item F, which is the appointment of an ad hoc committee on affordable housing, and I'd like to do that one right after B so that we get all the affordable housing conversations done back to back instead of revisiting. I think that would make some sense. I'm sorry I didn't catch that when we made up the agenda. So, any objections to doing that? No? Seeing? Okay, so we'll move F to right after B. All right, anything else? We're down to number 2, acknowledgements and presentations. I myself would like to acknowledge the wonderful job that the staff did on the town hall presentation. Pavo, Melissa, and Jim Green all did wonderful jobs. I thought not only giving the presentation, but then answering the questions and getting out the information that we were looking for. So I would commend the general manager and his staff for doing a great job on getting that done. Vice President Farmer.
Well, I think everybody knows how I feel about the project itself, but I do want to say that the aforementioned folks that President Pearson related to were up till 11:30 Friday night, making sure that everything was together and all the information was organized so they could do the best job they possibly could. So I want to acknowledge that. And of course, they spent a lot of time the previous few weeks getting organized as well. So thank you.
Okay. Yes, Director Howell.
I just want to second what President Pearson said. The material, I've been receiving some feedback from the community and people who were not knowledgeable have commented to me that they really found it very helpful. So, and I personally found it to be very clear. So again, kudos to the staff and also kudos to the people that came and took time out of their day to do that because it was an important issue and I was glad to see, I would say probably 100 community members at least that came and felt it was important enough to be here. So I was very pleased and thanks to them for coming as well.
Great. And yes, sir.
Mr. President, I also want to, first of all, thank you for the acknowledgments that there were a number of admin or district staff members that put in some extraordinary hours, canceling vacations, work until midnight the night before. So thanks very much for the acknowledgments on that. I wanted to let you and the public know also that we've posted the video and the presentation online on the CCSD website. It can be found under the water tab and the SWF tab at the top of the front page.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Further comment? No? Good. Okay. So let's go on to number 3, which is public comment. I have 3 slips here. First person up will be Mary Mahler, and followed by Leslie Richards.
All right. I'm going to continue and say pretty much the same thing, but just to reiterate and from the community standpoint. So I attended last Saturday's special meeting on the water system in the facility. I was very impressed by the main speakers who shared well thought out, easy to follow presentations on a very complex and controversial subject. It was obvious the speakers were well prepared, knowledgeable, and concentrated on providing facts and data on the subject. The questions asked were focused on the main items the community wanted to learn about, relative to the history, the technical aspects, and the next steps. As we all know, it's a very controversial and emotional subject within the community. I myself found it refreshing that the vast majority of the community attendees were having an open dialogue on the subject based just on facts and data. So, and I also applaud, excuse me, the forward-thinking directors who offered thought-provoking comments. So, from my viewpoint, with the exception, as Director Farmer said, with his negative focus on past decisions and the misleading comments about a fellow board member, I think it was an overall success. So hats off, and the cookies were a hit.
All right. Next is Leslie Richards, followed by Ms. Bittenhout.
Good morning, Les Richards, 30-year resident Cambria. I have an email from John Rocky that was sent to staff this morning at 9:30 a.m. concerning the town hall meeting. Information was at the town hall meeting that was given by Mr. Green that may have been confusing. He wants to clarify. Recent town hall meeting, Jim Green stated that the Regional Water Board might be allowing RO brine produced from EWS operations to be blended with WWTP effluent and disposed of in the perk ponds as was allowed for the diluted Title 27 evaporation pond water. I'm sorry I was unable to attend that town hall event as I could have addressed this issue in real time. He goes on to say operations of the EWS SWF facility is regulated via recently updated order R32019-0051, which states, 1, reverse osmosis concentrate and other cleaning wastes previously sent to the Title 27 surface impoundment shall be stored on site tanks, which are either double-walled or are provided with secondary containment before being trucked to an appropriately regulated disposal facility. He says water board staff expects and intends that RO concentrate be removed from the site and disposed of at an appropriately regulated facility as stated in the order. The section of the order also applies to EWS testing and maintenance operations. I hope that clears up any confusion that may have existed on this issue. Please contact me with any questions, etc. John Rocky. Just to clarify, on the record, there was some misinformation at that town hall meeting, and it has been clarified here today. We have to truck out the brine. That's what the order says. It was a very good event. It was very well organized, and I appreciate you doing this. Thank you so very much for having that event. Take care.
All right, Ms. Bettenhausen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I certainly also attended that event. Some friends of mine could not because they were sick and otherwise attending to personal issues. So I thank, as Mr. Howell does, the people who attended, but I grant that there were certainly expert reasons for others not to. Walking along the beach in Cambria this morning made the climate crisis hard to believe. What could possibly be wrong with this place? The marine layer was far out. The temperature is about 65. It's gone up since then. And the northwest sea breeze, a few feathers. Paradise indeed. Of course, some seagulls tried to snatch fish from the pelicans, and some adult gulls were screeching at the young ones who didn't understand the rules. Crows bothered the snowy plover, as did humans who didn't look down as they were walking along the sand. And the common bottlenose dolphins were leaping again, and the killdeer asserted their home base as they do daily. Before I got there, raccoons had been there, and an elk, and many birds, and some dogs and humans, and they'd all left their tracks in the sand. I went a bit late this morning. CBS News had the interview of Greta Thunberg 2 days ago, and I saw it this morning, the 16-year-old activist from Sweden, who's an impressive human being. She said, "We must step out of our comfort zone. And in order to begin to understand the full picture," as she said, "of the climate crisis, we should not look simply at individual behavior that can change, but how the problem, which she also calls the ecological emergency, has been created in interacting patterns and institutions that we've created." My comfort zone is pretty big here in Cambria. I am a privileged human being. But Naam Gresky in this morning's LA Times pointed out that the U.S. has a much higher contribution to greenhouse gas than China does per person. And she said, moreover, a good portion of Chinese emissions are embedded emissions, the result of manufacturing goods for export mostly to Europe and here. To the great extent, she says, U.S. consumption drives Chinese emissions, end of quotation. Now, isn't that sobering? I wish I had more than my 3 minutes, which are almost up, because I have a great deal to say about tourism industry in this town and how the CCSD is participating with it. I fully disagree that we must continue the level of consumerism that is present in this town with regard to tourism, with regard to full-time residents, namely me and others. I'm privileged, but I'm responsible for the climate crisis. And the meeting the other day did not consider it at all. We talked about the water plant without any mention whatsoever until a couple of you made comments after it was basically over. Any mention at all of the climate crisis. And friends, it's no longer just a climate change sort of ambling into the future. It is a crisis. And I will send you individually, I didn't get time to copy it out today, I will send you via the electronic media a copy of this as well as post it to social media. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Public comment complete. Move on to regular business. Item number 4A, discussion and consideration of approval of real property transfer agreement. Who's Mr. Carmel?
President Pearson, members of the board, in 2017, the district entered into a memorandum of understanding with the Land Conservancy of San Luis Obispo. It's called the Lodge Hill TDC Program MOU. Under the MOU, the Conservancy will acquire lots either by purchase or donation. They transfer those lots to the district. The district encumbers the lots with a conservation easement in favor of the Land Conservancy, retiring all the development rights. Those rights are used in the transfer development program. This MOU effectively implements two very important programs, the build-out reduction program and the county's transfer development credit program. The Land Conservancy has a landowner who wants to donate 3 lots located on Ramsey Road. They indicate the lots are of very high ecological value. I haven't seen them. Carlos has inspected the lots and found them to be in good condition. I reviewed the title reports. There's no title issues. So it's recommended that you authorize the general manager to execute a land transfer agreement with the Land Conservancy and additionally adopt Resolution 34 2019, which authorizes the general manager to execute a certificate of acceptance when the grant deed is ready to record. We would normally have the agreement in the packet. There was some mistakes in it. It wasn't ready. But this is a stock agreement that we've been using for the past 3 years. It doesn't really change. So that agreement should be subject to my review and approval before it's executed. And be glad to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. Before we get to board discussion, we have one request to speak, Crosby Swartz.
Good afternoon. I'm Crosby Swartz, Cambria resident. President Pearson, members of the board, and staff here. I have a comment just to elaborate on the agenda package on this item. There are a number of players that are partnering in making this program work, and I'm sure they're looking forward to the board agreeing to accept these lots. It is a county program, started, I think, 25 years ago. Incidentally, one of the people that was involved in starting it was our Supervisor Gibson. This is before he was the supervisor, so he's very familiar with this program. Last year, the County Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors voted to review, reword, and slightly expand this program to make some additional areas of Cambria eligible to be either retired or to use the development credits for expansion. So it's an active program as far as they're concerned, and I'm sure they would appreciate the CCSD's cooperation. Also, another player that wasn't mentioned, the California Coastal Conservancy considers this TDC program one of their programs. They have provided some of the funding for this over the years, and they've also provided or facilitated funding for a lot of projects in Cambria over the years. I think it's past $25 million worth of projects in the community. I'm sure they too are looking forward to the board approving this transfer. I guess that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, other discussion. Anyone? Director Howell?
Just to clarification, is a wording in here I wasn't aware of, so I just wanted to be sure I got this straight. It says that the building potential of the retired lots is transferred out of the CCSD service area. Is that true? And
That's
that's
correct.
not something I knew.
That's how the program works.
Good thing. So it reduces our total potential demand for water. Is that
Fits
okay?
perfectly within the build-out reduction program.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Director Rice?
I just have a couple of questions. When we've had these before, we did have a certain amount of the fiscal impact regarding the ongoing maintenance. We also, when we received, I think it was when we received a big set of lots, we got a small amount from the Land Conservancy to help us with the initial years of maintenance. Is there any possibility of having a small amount attached to these as we move forward, just so that we can kind of cover some of it?
We periodically discuss this issue. I remember we got $3,000 in 2017 when we took about 20 lots on.
Right.
I can certainly go back to Daniel and ask.
Okay. Well, I don't want to mess the relationship up. I mean, because I respect what they're trying to get done on our behalf. So, I mean, that's not where I'm coming from. I don't know if that's something that we can revisit, or how we fund that is kind of important, because the drips and drops of lots ends up being a lot of money to maintain, and you know, unless we're gonna get a bunch of goats. What do you call a group of goats?
Yeah, well, we tried that. This is a grassy knoll, so there's going to be weed whacking done on this thing every year. So,
Okay.
Well, it'll have to be weed abated like the rest of them.
Right, just like the rest. So that would be nice if we could get some more clarity on how much it does cost to take these lots on for maintenance long-term.
I'll do that. I think you're going to get another one of these transactions. Actually, next meeting, they're trying to
Okay.
get it together that fast.
Okay.
So we'll make some comments on maintenance costs in there.
Okay, and then question on in the second paragraph under the discussion, pretty much right about in the exact middle, it says The TDC program voluntarily retires lots designated sensitive resource areas of Monterey pine forest habitat by recording a conservation easement or other document on the property. We may not be able to get into the discussion right now, but what does it mean, or other document? Would it be essentially acting as the same thing, where it prevents future development of any kind?
There are other instruments that can retire development rights, and I think that's just a broad reference to those. We use a standardized conservation easement.
When we get it from the Conservancy. Right, okay. And then the Land Conservancy sells those TDCs essentially to build up their funds for purchasing more properties. Perhaps maybe then with the next report, we could get more information about when the last time they purchased a lot or publicly promoted the program itself. Because or even sold TDCs for that matter, because I don't know that people are buying them right now. Maybe they are for remodels and stuff, but that would be helpful information for me. I'm pretty sure that before next month, it would be impossible to get an update on how many lots have been retired through the program, but that would be nice for the board to know too, and for Coastal Commission, so we can show progress on the BRP program and the reduction to the potential development in town. The last thing is just too specific in the resolution, and I don't know if it's possible to do it today, but it's two minor edits, because I think that it's important going forward. I'm looking at the second whereas, and this is on page 1 of 3, which is page 5 of the agenda, at least the one I'm looking at. Whereas the Cambria Community Services District has a need to reduce the district's water demand, I think I'd rather have it say something along the lines of, whereas the Cambria Community Services District, I guess it's on the fourth whereas, I'm sorry. Instead of saying, thereby simultaneously both reducing the district's demand for water, I think it should say the potential future demand instead. And the reason I'm saying that, and the reason I kind of want to have the second whereas, but I don't have the language yet, is because it's about managing the resources we have. Everybody has limited water. The planet is limited water, period. No matter where you are. Some places it's more limited than others for the uses, but I think it's not about just, this program isn't about reducing the district's water demand current, it's about the potential, reducing the potential demand, and I think that's a management tool that we use. So I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that.
I had the same two circled. I think we need to at least in the future, when you bring these resolutions, those need to be reworded, and if you'd like help on rewording them, I think Director Rice would be glad to assist with that.
Sure. Feel free to just email me the wording that you like.
Is it possible to change the language on this one?
Absolutely.
I'm okay.
I'd like to sit on this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
So for the potential future demand
That's
would be what I'd like to see there instead. Because that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is reduce the potential for demand on the resource.
Right.
So it makes it easier to manage, I hope. So.
But if we say on the second one, whereas the Cambria Community Services District has a desire to reduce the district's water demand, does that make more sense?
That it doesn't
no.
seem firm enough, I think, with the word
Yeah.
desire.
That's kind of a nice to, yeah.
Yeah, whereas the Cambria Community Services District has set a priority.
Yeah, that's good.
Has made it a priority, maybe is
Yes.
better.
Has made it a priority to reduce the district water demand.
Or to better manage our water resources. Can we say that? We have it.
I don't know
Is that going too
better
far?
is, I don't know if better is the right word. I'm thinking more in terms of it being a,
Has made it a priority to
stewardship,
Address.
associated with the stewardship of the.
oh, yeah.
Is, I guess, what my,
Has made it a
Thinking
priority to apply best management of water resources, or, no, that doesn't work. Let's just keep, has made it a priority to reduce the potential district water demand for now. Does that work for
Yes.
everyone?
Yeah. And if you guys want to wordsmith it some more later, that's great.
Not on this one, but maybe in the future.
Yeah.
Because I think especially going forward, we need to be clear in our resolutions about what these whereases are actually saying that we are saying. You know, it's critical for lots of reasons.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's, other than actually the questions that Director Rice brought forward, I had something else also. I was just curious as to whether there are any power poles or hydrants or anything of that nature on these lots.
I haven't actually seen the lots, but I think President Pearson has, so maybe he remembers.
I think the electrical poles are on the other side of Ramsey, to tell you the truth. But
Okay.
When I drove by, there were very few trees. Most of the trees were downed trees, but were the, proper. The lot was cleaned up well.
Okay.
So we're not going to have anything to do initially, but every year we're going to need to weed whack that.
Okay. Yeah, I was just concerned that with either of those residing on the properties that we were taking on additional encumbrances.
Yeah, well, we are. We do every time we do this.
Oh, granted, but I mean in terms of power pole movement or some odd.
No, I didn't see any of that.
And other than, of course, I guess that isn't the case for this one because of what you've just described. I was just curious what other ongoing maintenance costs would be other than the actual weed abatement.
We'll try to bring that back at the, probably at the next meeting when we have this same basic item.
Okay.
I know we did have to take care of a tree that was leaning over towards somebody else's property on one of the lots that we own. So it's probably things like that, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It'll be good to get the information.
And I guess I do have one more question that's just more of my being not familiar with the process. When the transfer actually occurs, I'm assuming that there are legal or transactional fees for the recording of the deed and the encumbrances. What generally do those run?
The total package, including escrow, probably about $500, and they're split between the Land Conservancy and the district.
Okay, thank you.
Vice President Farmer.
Thank you. I just want to reference something else here in this agenda number, and it talks about the TDC program. It was established in the late 1980s as a way to address concerns over development of antiquated and substandard lots in Cambria. And then it says several thousand parcels created in the 1920s and 30s were located on densely forested and steeply sloped lands. And then it continues, rapid development threatened the rare Monterey pine forest and presented erosion and sediment concerns, as well as further straining the area's already limited water supply. Well, I think with regard to erosion and limited water supply, that still applies to today, but I'm just curious with regard to this comment about rapid development and the threats that appear to be happening. What time frame does that relate to? The 80s. Okay, there were anywhere from 80 to 100 over 100 homes being built every year when I moved here in 86, so I can certainly see that. Thank you.
Okay. again, my concerns here are, once again, we're taking on more land that we have to clear, and we don't have any fiscal income that's going to help us take care of that, or other things that we've got a very limited budget to do. It's a good program. Like you said, it takes away some of the lots that are BRP and that kind of thing. This looked to me, when I drove by, as a very buildable lot, fairly level and that kind of thing. It's not one of these steeply forested ones. It's on the uphill side of Ramsey, not the downhill side, which is very, very steep. So, again, just, I did have one other question. We were going to do one of these last year out in Dovedale area, and has that resurfaced? Is that the one that they're bringing back, or?
No, I don't believe so. You remember there were serious problems with dead trees
Yes.
and dangerous trees. I just don't think they ever invested the money to clear the problem up, so it never happened.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I can ask Daniel what happened to it, but it never came back.
Yeah, I would like an answer to that one, because if they haven't cleaned up the dead trees, then they ought to, because it's an empty lot. Per our, or we're sending them a bill for us to clean it up. Yes, Director Rice.
Although sometimes they do like to leave some of the downed trees as habitat, so not just clearing it out like we're going to pave it.
Yeah, these were trees that were dead and standing or leaning, and in fact, one of them, when I went by, was actually endangering the house next door, so I thought it needed to be done. All right, so I will entertain a resolution to go ahead and get this one taken care of.
I move, sorry, let me get to the page, right page. I move that we adopt Resolution 34-2019, authorizing the general manager to accept by grant deed 3 lots with 1 APN held by the Land Conservancy of San Luis Obispo County and execute related documents with the modifications to the resolution. Sorry.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Rice?
Aye.
Director Stidel?
Aye.
Director Howell?
Aye.
Vice President Farmer?
Aye.
President Pearson?
Aye.
We'll also need a separate motion to authorize the general manager to execute the land transfer agreement subject to district council review and approval.
So
Okay,
moved.
So moved. Second.
I'll second that.
Vice President Farmer seconds.
Director Rice?
Aye.
Director Howell?
Aye.
Director Stidel?
Aye.
Vice President Farmer?
Aye.
President Pearson?
Aye. All right. Moving on, we're now on regular business item number 4B. Mr. Carmel, is this one yours too?
Yes, it is, sir.
Okay.
This item was actually continued from the August 15th meeting. It involves a request to extend an intent to serve letter for 12 multifamily EDUs, properties on Arliss and Green. The applicant is Boris Pilch, LLC. At that meeting, the consensus of the board at that time was to deny the time extension, and staff requested a one-month extension of the letter so we could have an opportunity to draft a supporting resolution with detailed findings to support the denial. That resolution is in your packet. As you probably know by reading it, this particular intent to serve letter has a very long and tortured history. It was issued in 1998 originally. It's gone through several owners. It's gone through actually several lawsuits. There's been discretionary extensions. There's been settlement agreements. There's been extensions that were the result of litigation. So it does have a fairly long and tortured history. At this point, staff just recommends that you discuss and consider either extending the letter or denying the extension. I'd be glad to answer any questions. I think the applicant's representatives are here.
Yes. We have several requests to speak. We'll start with Ms. Heinrichs, followed by Mr. Puglisi. welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking up this Pilch intent to serve letter as you promised a month ago. At that time, the board unanimously voted to bring it back with directions as to how to terminate it. The staff has done so, but with the recommendation that the letter nevertheless be extended for 18 months. This is mystifying, but the board should proceed as it intended and terminate this letter. The only change has been Mr. Pilch's letter to say that he is now going to develop the property as affordable housing. The property has many problems: rain, confusion as to water meters, adding to traffic and parking congestion. Most important, however, is the Coastal Commission's rejection of the board's idea that if a development complies with the affordable housing definition, it is exempt from water requirements. It is not, as the Coastal Commission staff report documents. The project is for affordable housing, but the local coastal program only allows allocation of water supply when it is from an adequate sustainable water supply, which it is not. The local coastal program explicitly prohibits the CCSD from issuing will-serve letters until an affordable housing program is in place that allocates water from an adequate sustainable water supply, and no such program exists. There is not an adequate sustainable water supply to provide new water service to serve new development in Cambria, and it is not adequate even for existing development, a fact that has been repeatedly determined by the Commission in relation to Cambria development through multiple actions, including certification of LCP policies specific to the lack of available water and imposing specific water supply requirements, and CDP actions. The lack of adequate water for existing users was why the community spent millions of dollars building the emergency water supply project. That has not changed. The idea that the CSD board can allow this letter to continue with the notion that further along in the process the applicant will find the project financially unfeasible or that the county will deny it a permit abrogates the board's responsibility. You know that Cambria does not have enough water, the county knows it, and the Coastal Commission knows it. As Director Howell said the last time this issue came up, it would do a disservice both to the community and to the property owner to put them jumping through hoops when they may not be able to go forward. It would be better if we were to deny this. This intent to serve letter has gone through a long history over many years of various owners and project ideas. It's a letter of the undead. Please proceed with your intention and terminate this vampire intent to serve letter today. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Puglisi, please.
Board
Followed
members.
by Mr. Bachelor, I'm sorry. Excuse
Board
me.
members, my name is Steve Puglisi. I'm project architect working for Boris Pilch. I have in the audience with me John Belcher, a legal representative. My office alone over the past year since I engaged with Mr. Pilch has exhausted 350 man-hours into this project. We certainly don't consider it dead. We certainly agree that it is replete with problems, water certainly being one of them, Coastal Commission's attitude towards development in Cambria, the County of San Luis Obispo's attitude and moratorium on development. All of these issues, however, are finite. They will have an end eventually. This particular owner, and one of many in a long line of owners, have had a continuous belief that this board will live up to the obligation and the commitment that it made for these letters. I want to assure you as the architect that we are certainly continuing to work diligently. We have had numerous meetings with Jay Johnson, San Luis Obispo County Planning. I have personally been involved not only in those meetings, but also with County Public Works and Engineering. Yes, we have issues. We have issues with parking, a steep site, the flora and fauna, and yes, the water. But we believe we can, through good design, come up with a project that once the county opens the opportunity for water, we will be in position to proceed with this project. Because of that particular issue, we are not able at this moment to go forward with the county for approval. Until the moratorium is lifted, they will not grant our CDP. We, as an alternative, are now attempting to pursue the affordable opportunities to come up with a secondary plan. If that isn't evidence to you folks that we're sincere, I don't know what is. Thank you very much for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Good, thank you. Questions for Mr. Puglisi while he's here?
Sir, I appreciate you being here today. Thank you. I know that you annotated a number of items that you need to resolve with the county to go forward. And I also know that there have been actions that architecturally, as far as the drawings are concerned, that have been looked into and are being considered as options. And some of that is as a status update has come through the NCAC
That is
presentations. Have you had the opportunity to relay some of those things back to the county at this point, or has this just been a work in progress that that the NCAC had some visibility to? And if you haven't yet had an opportunity to take some of that information back to the county, just to apprise them of the efforts that you're making, do you feel that that's something you would choose to do or could do in the near term?
We've already done it. As a matter of fact, every design modification I make goes directly to Jay Johnson to make sure that he first is in the loop from the county. That same document or sets of documents are immediately sent to the advisory council to make sure that they are seeing every move that we are making. What has not been shown to anyone yet is the initial planning that John and I have been working on for the affordable aspects. That is going to alter parking, it's going to alter the size of the units and a variety of other aspects. That is still very, very much a work in progress. But I assure you, as soon as the ink dries from my office, those drawings too will be presented to all members.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not a problem. So you said you were coming up, your last words in your statement were you're coming up with a secondary plan, and then you just addressed that you'd be changing maybe the construction, the greater availability of parking, those types of things.
That is correct.
So why wasn't that done initially? I mean, it's pretty obvious what the challenges have been over the years. Like we said, this has been lingering around for decades. So why is it now that you're saying, well, we can make further adjustments to make this more appropriate for the location? I mean, we're not going to have more water. Let me just say that. We have a limited amount of water, no matter whether that facility exists or not. The terrain is not going to get any less steep. The need for parking isn't going to get decreased. So what changes would you be coming up with that would cause us to allow this extension and to think that it's going to be a better project?
Our belief, and that's a very good question. Our belief is as follows. To this date, we have been working market rate. That gives me and an architect a number somewhere in between $250 and $300 per square foot to build a residence. When we realized through the county that the opportunity for the county to lift the moratorium in our lifetime, it may not happen. So we have to look at an alternative. What is that one and only alternative? Coastal Commission, this board, and the county all see a path forward for development. It's called affordable housing. What's the caveat? Affordable housing has to meet a certain threshold, and frankly, it is quite a low threshold for either rent or sale. My numbers, $300 a foot to build, they're not going to work. We have to come up with more creative solutions, how to reduce site costs, how to alter the parking, and how to amend our designs to make them fit into that matrix of what would be practical for an affordable project. We do not want to abandon our market rate on the off chance that this committee will be willing to grant will serve if the county makes water available. It certainly would be to Mr. Pilch's advantage to have a market rate project. But looking at an alternative on the off chance that that never occurs, the only other option available to us would be pursuing the affordable.
Let me just ask you one more question. So I know you've obviously been up in that area, and it's essentially all single-family dwellings. So how does a essentially 12-unit apartment building on a steep slope fit into the surrounding neighborhood of single-family dwellings?
We will meet the density requirement as set forth by the county, whether the units are attached or unattached, and we have looked at both. We have looked at both.
Okay.
Okay, no further questions.
Yes, Director Stidel.
I just wanted to offer out also that I believe that the affordable housing project that you're looking at has fewer than 12 units. Is that correct? It's not fewer, but it's potentially 11 units.
I cannot attest to that, and let me explain to you why.
Okay.
Although parking is going to be one of the controls under the state regulation for affordable projects, there are certain requests, offers that we are allowed to explore. One of those are density. That's going to include number of units. It's going to include the potential reduction of parking. There are a variety of avenues that the state mandates for these type of projects. We will need to explore each and every one of them, and I would not want to pretend to you folks that we would be coming in with just 12 units. It may be less, it may even be a little bit more as the affordable project.
Okay, thank you. And I just wanted to annotate also that this particular owner and this project moving forward hasn't been going on for decades. This is not what has been going on since 1998. This is far short of that, and I just want to bring that to your attention.
Yes, Director Howell.
Apropos of that, what Director Stidel just said, I was wondering exactly how long has this present owner been going forward with this project? Can we?
Remind the board we're asking questions of this gentleman here. We need to go on to the next commentary when we're done with questions.
For the record, what I've just presented to the chair is the time cards of Stephen Puglisi Architects. It will document every day to the day and the number of hours and what has been done on this project beginning last year.
Yeah, so the architect has been spending time since basically November of last year, about a year on this thing. And Mr. Pilch has owned it since 2015 or something like that, in that vicinity.
I do want to comment, we need to look back in history. When these properties were acquired by Dr. Pilch, we were suffering through and have yet to recover from the worst recession in the past 100 years in this country. Nothing was being developed. When we started to pull ourselves out of that, which was a couple of years ago, that is when Dr. Pilch first approached us to get back started on this project.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thanks very much.
Yes, Director Howell.
So do I understand then that Dr. Pilch has owned this property since approximately 2015? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, I can.
I don't have that.
I do.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I apologize. I thought I did. It's
May 22nd, 2014.
No, the December,
It was owned by Higuera Commons the last time in 2014 when you
Right.
considered an extension.
Okay.
I suspect it was 2015 or 2016, but his attorney, Mr. Belcher, may know.
Yes, Mr. Belcher?
Yes, John Belcher. I'm legal counsel for Dr. Pilch, and he took over this project. I believe it was later in 2015 or early in 2016 from a prior development entity that acquired it from the bank, which had promised to develop it, then turned around and sold it. But it's a checkered past. I do have a speaker's slip. I can go with your questions, or I can just.
Well, let's go ahead and hear your comments first, and
okay.
then we'll open it up for questions.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I know this is extremely frustrating for all involved, and I know because I was an attorney involved in the project back in the late 90s. So I'm fully aware how difficult this has been for both the property owners and the district to deal with. And it's difficult because, not just because the property's a tough challenge. It's a tough challenge, but there's a project to be built there. But because there hasn't been water available at the end of the tunnel to drive the train forward. So we can spend a lot of money on development plans, but as the staff report states, the lack of progress has something to do with the continued limitations on CCSD's ability to serve the property. So the intent to serve letter is a two-way street. It says, hey, here's your project, go for it. And then we go for it, and then they say, sorry, the Coastal Commission is being tough on us. We don't have the water to serve you. There's a little bright spot here, which is why we're all here today, which is that the Affordable Housing Program may allow for service to deserving projects. And I happen to represent a property owner in San Simeon who has dozens of workers in Cambria living in hotel room sized apartments. That was part of the project conversion. So I personally know that Cambria is not providing housing for its service. Those people are living, families are living in single rooms in San Simeon. And those are the people that work in your hotels, they work in your service industry, and work throughout the town. So when the opportunity came up for affordable housing project, we said, that's great. We can do a less impactful project, we can do less grading, we can probably use caissons, and we can probably park this thing in a reasonable fashion. We can actually do something that can work with a lower cost construction. But we don't want to give up the letter of intent, which is our contract with you to move forward. So we've asked for 18 months in which to try our hand to come back to you with our affordable housing project. We've already made the application. We're going to be working with your staff in the county to try to get that application to shine a little bit and meet your requirements. I want to make one comment about a response on the issue of, is this single-family neighborhood or multifamily neighborhood? I was here when the board chastised us for putting what looked to be duplexes into the project, and they required as a condition of the original letters of intent that this be a multifamily project. And they said, you will not build single-family homes on our multifamily property. So several property owners went off for the last 10 years saying, okay, and I've told every single one of them, design it to be multifamily, because that's what the board told us. So if we can come up with something that looks compatible with the neighborhood and still meets your board's continuing need for multifamily housing, that's what the plan is here. So I want you to give us a chance to do this. This is a very extremely valuable right. That's why there has been litigation over the attempts by previous boards to terminate these letters of intent. Nobody wants to go there. We want to give it a chance. We want to see you again with our affordable housing project. In the meantime, we'll have this one sit there, and let's wait to see if we can do something really for the community and what fit into all these different challenges. So I thank you for your time, and I'm sorry that we weren't here last month to explain all this.
Thank you. Hang on a minute. There may be some questions for you, too.
I do have an answer on that date.
Okay.
By the way, March 27th, 2014, the Board of Directors extended the intent to serve when it was held by Pacific Western Bank, and that was extended for 1 year. Now, on May 22nd, 2014, the Board of Directors created that extension for the application to the Higuera Commons LLC, formerly owned by Pacific Western Bank. So that's when that changeover happened. The other overlay to that to keep in mind is whatever actions or movement forward could be taken were offset by the Stage 3 that went into effect, and the Stage 3 went into effect January 30, 2014, and wasn't lifted until March 23rd, 2017. So under any condition, there would not have been any action that would have been able to be attained or obtained during that time frame. So the actual interface and actions and extensions that have been required or requested by the Pilch project, or formerly Higuera, have been of a very shortened time frame.
Okay, we have other speakers, so thank you very much,
You're welcome.
Mr. Pilcher. Elizabeth Bettenhausen, followed by Leslie Richards.
Excuse me, 1 second. Sorry for my throat. Thank you, Mr. President. I am speaking, hoping that you will approve the resolution as stated. Technical legalese though it is, I think what it does is not extend this intent to serve letter, but I would like to suggest an amendment, and that is to number 2 on the therefores on page, I got to get my glasses changed here, on page 12 of your agenda. I would suggest that you add, so it will read, is hereby denied, and the letter of intent to serve for this property hereby revoked. It's making it much clearer, because it's not yet clear in the way it's worded now exactly what's supposed to happen, other than not extending the intent to serve term. So I suggest to you that you amend it to read, is hereby denied, and the intent to serve letter for this property permanently revoked. Now, I want to say one other thing, a couple of other things quickly. I am still meditating on there hasn't been water at the end of the tunnel to drive this train forward. Now, I hope that I will understand that metaphor eventually as a reason for you to extend this for 18 months, but at the moment I do not. I hear in the comment about this property the intense passion of people who own property that can be developed in their understanding of their property to get it done. And I do not hear, even though it's been repeated several times, the understanding that there is not enough water in Cambria now or in the future, so far as we can tell, to serve this property development. And therefore, it will not go forward, because that's your policy. So I am after 17 years of this and listening to the discussions in your body with previous members, of course, of this particular intent to serve letter, it's getting tediously repetitive. Or I might say, there hasn't been water at the end of the tunnel to drive this train forward. So why don't you adopt the resolution, please, and free us all, except Dr. whatever his name is, who is the property owner and therefore, of course, has certain interests at heart. I thank you very much for your kind attention to this matter.
Thank you, Leslie Richards.
Leslie Richards, Cambria resident. I was here at the meeting when Melissa Bland was contacted by this group when they transferred. It was during the meeting when you did the code change from, you added moderate and workforce housing to the code, and within 15 minutes she was contacted in the background, showed me the email she had received from the actual developer and the Mr. Pilch. I don't know if it was council, I don't know who came from, but she said that she came to the podium and said that they have pulled the project now. They don't have a multifamily project. They want to reassign the project as a affordable housing project. Exactly what I had said at the podium, literally 15 minutes early when you made that code change, was that this is going to be a workaround from the moratorium. I have the current list for affordable housing programs that was stopped at 32 applicants. And by the way, two contractors tried to go to the CCSD office and add their projects to this list. And Melissa Bland didn't allow them to add their projects to this list. She said it was closed now temporarily until they figure out what's going on with the Coast Commission. So now all of a sudden you've made exception even to your list. And on here you have 5 single-family intent to serve letters. That is what these marks are here that are being transferred over from the moratorium wait list to affordable housing. If you set precedent here with this project, you have 5 more coming your way. Caution. I advise caution. Nobody wants litigation. But we residents of Cambria have been watching this project for the last 18 years. And what I want to bring up is the architect, and I didn't get his name, I apologize, I think it was Bolisi. He said it clear as a bell. Well, we tried to build multifamily, but we couldn't do that, so we changed the project over to affordable. Exactly what I said was going to happen, he just said again. And if you have an architect who can't actually get you a project online in 350 work hours, even a thumbnail sketch, or since November, you need to get a new architect, in my personal opinion. The answers should be available to you right now. The questions should be answered right now. What is the project? So stalling for more time is not appropriate either. This has been going on forever. My final comment as well is, Mr. Belcher is very well known in this county. He has been around a long time. And what I find interesting is the council is consistent, even though the property owners have changed multiple times, which is quite interesting as well. So the bottom line here is I say stick to your guns and remove this intent to serve. This has been a disaster from day one. It continues to be a disaster now. And you are setting precedent for more trouble coming your way. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I have a question for Leslie.
Sure. Director Rice.
The list that you were showing, is that the multifamily?
No, this is the new affordable housing list. This is a new list that was created.
That's different from the multifamily list, because I think we have a multifamily list.
Right, and we have 2 individuals that tried to apply on this list, and because there was 56 allocations.
That's the affordable one you're showing. Okay, thank you for the clarity. Some people were using affordable and multifamily interchangeably, and I just want to be clear about because they're not the same.
Agreed. However, the restrictions on single-family affordable housing are difficult, to say the least. Okay, public comment over. Director Howell, you want to go first?
Question. Am I correct that the project as it presently stands is on? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is, does this property have any kind of wait list position?
Yes.
I see a question. Am I clear as to what I'm asking?
No, it's not.
Okay, let me try again. It does not have a waitlist position of any kind.
No.
It's not on the multifamily.
It's a grandfathered letter of intent.
It's prior to that.
This was
so
1998.
it wouldn't be meaningful for us to say, well, gee, why don't you just go back to your waitlist position and wait your turn, because it's not on the wait list. I just wanted to get clear that that was the case.
That's my understanding. It was issued in 1998 prior to the moratorium, so it wouldn't have a waitlist position.
Well, let's see, we closed it in 90, didn't we? Wasn't the...
I don't know that it was the same list. That's been confusing for me for years. But Mr. Belcher, if that's not the case, please correct me.
Was it ever on any list?
I'm not aware of that.
It was originally on a list, and then through the litigation, it was issued a letter of intent by settlement agreement with the district. And after that, the list is kind of a confusing thing to me. So I couldn't tell you because I'm not sure I'd be pointing to the right document. But it was at one time like top 3 or whatever, you know, at the time that all the settlement happened. We're just trying to hang on till we can figure out the right path here. I don't really see what the harm is to the public in giving us this shot, really, and we'll take our chances if affordable. It may not work, but if you are successful with your water projects, we'll be the first one having spent all this time and effort ready for a multifamily project, and it's probably going to be, a rental project, which, your community needs. So anyway, that's what I see.
Oh, thank you.
All right, Director Rice.
I was on the board in 2014 when this extension of this letter came to us for Higuera Commons. It had gone through a foreclosure, and then that bank that foreclosed on it went under, even though they foreclosed on a property. They didn't have enough to stay afloat, so then it was a bank that owned it, then Higuera Commons. And looking through all of my agenda items on this, I gave each of you a blue packet. That's the agenda item from 2014 and has some good details in it. Some of that complicated overlapping legal stuff that's pretty well explained. I believe the staff report was written by Council Carmel or Hirsch.
Probably Hirsch.
I think it says Hirsch on the top of the staff report. So we're dealing with this on our end. The same council also. He wasn't. Carmel Nakasha didn't represent the district when the letter of intent was originally given, nor when it moved forward into in 2008 because the property changed hands because of the foreclosure. And all of that history is to say every time this was extended, conditions were put on that were essentially ignored or pushed forward. Looking at the minutes from the May 22nd meeting in 2014, which is the date that we had gotten it in March 2014. We said, wait a minute, just like we did this time, wait a minute, we need more information. And then we ended up waiting another month to May 2014 when the motion was made to extend the existing intent to serve letter for 6 months after the removal of the stage 3 water emergency or the current expiration date, whichever's later. And that motion was amended. I'm reading directly from the CCSD approved minutes, just so that's where I am. Motion was amended to state that there is no connection made during the stage 3 water emergency, and further amend motion to exclude Higuera Commons intent to serve letter in the motion, because the prior action that was taken was, oops, sorry, I went one too far. Oh, I went way too far. Sorry, please hold. This is why I like paper agendas. You can't pass too many pages all at once. Okay, so Director Clift moved to add the conditions of extending the intent to serve letter for 6 months after this stage 3 emergency. This is specific to this property, okay? And no connection before stage 3 ends. Place a deed restriction on 2 of the units for affordable housing for low income. Parcel 24191013 shall be offered as open space and as described in section 4 of an undated letter from John Belcher. And no water meter will be allowed on the parcel of 191.013. And its existing waitlist position number 654 will be retired. So there's 2 lots that were zoned multifamily and 1 that was single family residential. And part of that agreement on that extension was that wait list number goes away and you have to retire that single family lot from development. So there was a number on it, but it was for the single family on a separate lot, which I'm assuming these lots are going to be merged. But that might be a faulty assumption.
Between 2 configurations of build.
Okay.
And that open space lot very well may be. There is an open space area between the 2 configurations of build. And I believe that that may be the property that you're making
Okay.
reference to, that was retained as open space
Well,
between the two.
And full disclosure, I voted against that motion when it happened in 2014. The motion did pass at the time, but I want to be clear that I've already taken a position with a prior owner on this issue. I think we are smart to be clear that it's not about making sure somebody doesn't lose money on a speculative property purchase that had already been extended multiple times through court, through multiple things with the district, not because we don't have enough water, which I still say we don't even know what enough water means. We don't know what adequate water means. It's all well and good to say we don't have enough water, but I've never turned on my faucet and not had water come out. I know we're limited. I know we all conserve. That doesn't mean that we don't have enough. What it means is that we're all smarter for the planet and the community, including the flora and fauna that rely on the same water that we do. So that argument about not having enough water needs to be either shown by data that that's the case, like this is what we expect the demand to be, and this is what we actually can get based on our permitting and what the environment, all of that. Until we do that, I think that saying we don't have enough water is saying something that has no basis in fact yet. Now, entirely possible, we don't even have enough water for half the people in town without impacting the environment. We just don't know. And if we know, this board doesn't know. And so we need to make sure that we get some answers from staff, hopefully, to address that issue. I think it's been clear enough, and with the conditions that were part of the extension in 2014, which included the elimination of the single-family detached and having multifamily units, and 2 of the units have to be affordable. And there was a deadline, which didn't get met. They just want more time. That's what we heard every single time back in 2008, 2014. Every time we've gotten it, it's been like that. The other thing, I have a question for staff. In the 2014 report, it says we collected $400 for the extension, but this time it was $200. Did we change the fees? You may not be able to answer that right now, but okay, so, yeah. Ms. Madrid?
The fees have not been changed, but I don't know if there was maybe money had not been exchanged the initial time. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at the record.
It could be that there was the single-family lot in addition to the other one, so it could be that. Just out of curiosity, 200, 400, it's not a big deal, but let's make sure we're charging the right amount if we're charging something. It's nexus with how much it takes staff to do. Let me get back to today, because that's where it's important, is today. Thank you for indulging me on that, because this is an important issue. And while I empathize with with Dr. Pilch and Mr. Belcher and prior owners and property owners who are waiting to build, totally, I'm there. It's hard. It's not a guarantee in this town, and every single time we issue something that says we'll give you water and sewer, it says we can also revoke if you don't meet these things. And I think those things weren't met even when Dr. Pilch purchased the property from High Garrett Commons. I think that we are well within a low-risk situation to actually deny the extension of the intent to serve letter. They can still apply to have an affordable project. They just couldn't do a market rate project because until we open the wait list, and then they would have to apply, if they could even apply, to get on the wait list for multifamily. So I think that it doesn't extinguish all the potential development on the site to not have this intent to serve, because we have the affordable housing program that allows for a certain number of meters for affordable housing to be issued based on the retrofits and the fact that we've been planning to have that water be provided all along. We've been doing 6 a year. Those are counted in our urban water management plan for our demand projections. So I think that we're safely within enough water for this project, and I think that if it's affordable, then they can move forward. If they can't do it, if it doesn't pencil out as under affordability, then they're out of luck, I think.
Yeah, well, especially in the short term until the moratorium is lifted, like they said.
And 18 months isn't going to do it.
18 months is not going to do that, but at least they can pursue the affordable and look at that if we go ahead and extend this. So we made an obligation to these people ages ago to give them a letter of intent, and although it's changed hands and all that kind of thing, I think we still have that obligation. We can put restrictions on this letter that says you have to come back to us and show us exactly what you're going to do, exactly how you're going to do it, and that it has to be an affordable house. If you're going to do it within 18 months, it has to be an affordable project. Again, I agree with Director Rice that using the thing about not having enough water, I don't think we know the answer to that yet. We need to work on finding that answer out, and that we are going to talk about next item on the agenda, so we can figure that out and get going. But I think this is an obligation that the board made ages ago, and I think that we can again make that obligation for 18 months with conditions, and allow this to allow them to continue to look for a possible solution. I'll leave it at that for now. Director Howell.
I kind of agree, but not entirely. A couple of points, though. Based on the time that the property was acquired by the current owner, it would appear to me that the purchaser would have known that the county had already adopted a zero growth rate, because that was done in 2000. So that when the property was purchased, there was a certain element of risk, and presumably the buyer, Dr. Pilch, assumed that somehow, if he felt there was any value in this investment, then he must have felt there was some way of getting around that zero growth rate. So I don't have a lot of sympathy in the sense that this is not a case where somebody entered into a transaction without their eyes open, or if he was not aware at that point, then that's a failure on his part. So I don't feel that, and I'm not sure that I hold with the sense that the intent to serve letter creates an obligation for the district. I would read you some wording. It's also in our municipal code, but it's also in this letter from 2014. And just to remind everybody what this wording is, it says this letter may be revoked for several reasons. One, as a result of conditions imposed upon the district, I'm skipping around a little bit, or a change in availability of resources, a change in ordinances or regulations, now this is important, or regulations adopted by the Board of Directors for the protection of the health, safety, and welfare of the district. So this is a caveat that comes out with these letters. Furthermore, it also says, and this is taken from another section of the code, but it's included here, the Board of Directors reserves the right to revoke this intent to serve letter at any time. So this did not create, or should not have been seen as creating an obligation from the district. In fact, nor should it necessarily be seen as to indicate that we have water or not, as we're seeing from the current appeal at the Coastal Commission, where the staff is saying that county erred seriously in assuming that because this district issued an intent to serve letter, that therefore there was water. That the Coastal Commission staff has taken serious issue with that, and there's quoting some court decisions which also indicate that just because a district issues an intent to serve letter, it is not an assurance that there's actually going to be water. The other thing is, I'm not altogether clear about the process by which a person applies, gets the intent to serve letter, does the plans, but I did, again, encounter something in the code that indicated that even with the intent to serve letter and even having put a foundation in or whatever, at the point at which you wish to connect to the district's water system, you have to have a connection permit to do that. And at that point in time, the district can deny that permit if it sees fit. So there's no certainty anywhere along this. Having said that, I personally am definitely in favor of having more low and very low and extremely low income housing in this area. Also, I am very much concerned about the lack of long-term rentals in this area. So from these points of view, it is, on one sense, I would like to encourage the going forward of a project that was truly intended to be, to fill those needs. So on the one hand, I would like to encourage the developers to do that. But on the other hand, I don't wish to offer assurances that may not be, in other words, I would rather not have architects and lawyers and others and the property owner expending a lot of money only to then come around and where we are again forced to say, sorry, you can't do it. That seems to be certainly not fair in that sense. That I think if it is our intent to be highly restrictive in this particular matter, we need to make that right clear up front. So if I were to vote to extend this letter, it would only be if certain provisions were also included within it. As Director Pearson said, that we will only consider a project. This intent to serve letter is only relative to a project for low and very low income housing, period. And if it is not valid. It is only for that. And so you can just forget the other, if that's the direction you want to go. The other thing, as I say, I don't know, however, that you actually need an intent to serve letter from us at this point in order to go forward planning for affordable housing. You can make your plans, come back to us, and ask for an intent to serve letter at that point. The only reason for maintaining this intent to serve letter now, as it's been presented to us, is if for some reason this project does not pencil out, that the property owner does not lose his place in line, which happens to be the head of the line because he's not on the wait list. I'm not sympathetic to that particular position. So I would say either a letter with serious and very clear restrictions on it, or that we rescind this letter and that we ask the developer to come back with plans for an affordable housing development, which we will gladly look at that time. That's my position.
Thank you. Vice President Farmer.
I just want to say that I concur with many of the statements and observations that Director Howell has made. And I just want to follow, and also he kind of remarked on some of the comments that I was going to make. So I'll briefly say this, that with regard to something that Mr. Belcher said, he commented on the lack of progress on this project and other things was due to the inability of the CCSD to serve this project and address the housing needs of the community. And then he talked about the families that are living in San Simeon and that they can't find housing in our community. So I want to first say that the people that are most likely, unfortunately, having to live in housing in San Simeon, they are probably folks in low income and very low income in the service industry. And they will, unless this project changes drastically, they would not be able to afford affordable housing, which usually implies an income of roughly $80,000 a year. And one of the reasons that we are lacking affordable housing or housing for low and very low income people in this community is because so many long-term rentals have been turned over to vacation rentals, so the owners of those properties can make more money, and the fewer available long-term rentals, the prices of those are being increased, and therefore the lack of housing. It's not necessarily due to a problem or an inability or the ineffectiveness of this district. And if I could just I just want to ask legal counsel something here where it says about fiscal impact. It says here, a previous owner of the property, San Luis Trust Bank, paid $51,700 for in lieu retrofits, which may be subject to refund if the district is unable to serve the applicant. So is that referencing what we're talking about today? And is there any possibility of that happening?
Yes, that's what happens.
So in other words, if we deny this project, we may owe this bank some money? Is that what we're saying here?
That's right.
Not the bank now, the property owner.
The property owner.
Right. Monique, you can verify that. Yeah, no, they get their retrofit money back.
Actually,
Okay.
it's my understanding you could actually write that check to me personally, and then I'll make sure it gets to the owner. I want to say that I am definitely...
Mr. Belcher, you're out of order.
Oh, I just thought you wanted to respond to these conditions. He's requesting a certain condition. I just want to
No,
comment.
I think we have a legal counsel who did.
All right, well,
Thank you.
I think if you're going to make a motion,
No,
ask me if
you're
it's
out of
not.
order, sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Director Rice.
If you look on page 251 of the blue pages, which I also gave to the GM and Mr. Carmel, it says the second paragraph at the end of the intent to provide water and sewer service. It says a water and sewer connection permit will then be issued to you. Failure to complete any of the requirements of this intent to serve letter will, within the prescribed time restraints, may result in revocation of this intent to serve letter, forfeiture of fees, and your project will be returned to the wait list. This is on the document that says that they did submit the in lieu fee of $51,700, and it does say that it was met. But it also says that forfeiture of fees is a potential. I'm not saying necessarily it's a good idea. I just wanted to put it out there that that's part of the extension that there's two affordable units must be included. If they can't do it with at least two affordable, and affordable isn't workforce according to our policy.
Well, yeah. If they do an affordable project, they've got to meet the affordable project of the county, which includes low income, moderate income, et cetera, et cetera. So the change in our ordinance that we passed got us in line with the county. So if they do an affordable housing, they've got to meet the county criteria. Thank you. Yes, Director Steidel, your turn.
The in lieu fees that have to be repaid have a high probability of being real, which is $51,000 out of our pocket immediately. The idea of extending this 18 months or putting it on hold for 18 months, as was requested by letter to the board, has no risk to it. It can be rescinded at any time. You've said that yourselves. So we've got the balance of putting $51,000 out and paying that out, or extending or putting this on hold for 18 months and being able to rescind it at any time. And by the way, we can add whatever additional provisions we want to it. Where's the risk?
All right. Director Howell, you have some more to comment?
Yeah, the risk is still there. It's just pushed down the road. It's still there. If
We can
deny it.
rescind it any time.
Yes, and then we'd be in the same place. We'd have to pay the fees back.
There would
Is that what
be-
you're saying? If we do it now, you're saying we have to pay the fees back. If we push it 18 months down the road and then revoke it, or otherwise, for whatever reasons, as we're permitted, deny it, well, we would still then, according to your
Or
reasoning,
it's possible,
still have to pay
it's
those
also
fees back.
possible that the owner will choose to withdraw.
Yeah.
Well, no, please, just a minute. Come on. Please, let's, try at least acting professional.
Sorry.
The reality is if the owner is able to pursue affordable housing, then this intent to serve that has to do with a different style of housing can be withdrawn. Is that not correct? So, I mean, the other option down line is there's an 18-month breathing period, shall we say, that would allow the owner of the property to be able to look at the affordable housing option, which would be of enormous benefit to our community. And, by the way, would also provide some additional opportunity to provide or define or educate ourselves in terms of maybe resolving some of what is enough water by the definitions that Director Rice had described earlier. So the fact that there's very low risk, or at worst case condition, we would have to put out $51,000 later instead of just now. But the benefit potentially of having an owner be able to work towards developing affordable housing for our community, the ability perhaps then by having this withdrawn by the owner so that $51,000 obligation would no longer exist. And oh, by the way, it would provide us with enough information down the line during this period to get ourselves better founded in what the water issue is for ourselves as a whole. Let's face it, we've got a board who is trying to work toward that. We are all being very straightforward and very much aware of what water is in this community, and we all have a desire to be able to define it so that we can understand the parameters under which we need to be operating, and that it's fact-based so that we can have good decision-making. I don't see any risk in going ahead and going forward on this, particularly if there are provisions that we put in place along with it, whether it's as an on hold or whether it's an extension. And I think that I would prefer doing that rather than paying $51,000 today.
Well, may I respond?
Yes.
First of all, we're not being asked to pay that today. Second of all, let me hear from council here on the interpretation of this from 2014, the sentence which Director Rice already read. I'll read it again. Failure to comply with any of the requirements of this intent to serve letter within the prescribed restraints may result in a revocation and forfeiture of fees. So this was the previous owner. So the previous owner did not fulfill what they should have. So I'm not sure that those fees are necessarily refundable at this point in time. Oh, may I have your opinion on that?
I think that was dealing with revocation. There was no revocation.
But in this case, the other party to the contract didn't perform.
Right, but doesn't that sentence, isn't the predication revocation?
Let me look again. Failure to complete within the prescribed, all it says is failure to complete any of the requirements within the prescribed time restraints may result in revocation
of the letter, comma,
forfeiture of fees. Okay, so it's kind of and return to the waiting list, whatever that is. Okay, all right. So it's still a question then. If there was another point, but go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'll wait.
Go ahead.
Because I forgot it. It'll come back.
Okay. First, I think I need some clarity. If this intent to serve letter, let's say, didn't exist, if somebody were to let's take it even off of this property, because I'm looking to get what is the district's position in a situation where somebody has a multifamily zoned property. This is all theoretical, of course. This isn't related to this project or any other one. Multifamily zoned, they want to build something that is affordable at the low, very low, extremely low. Those are the only allocations that the county is willing to give out. Those are also the only things that we could say, we'll give you an intent to serve letter because you're building at that level. If they didn't have an intent to serve letter, it wouldn't matter, right? Because that's a separate process. Yes?
That's correct. The Affordable Housing Program talks about allocations. You don't need a will serve letter once you get your allocations. In other words, if they applied for 12 affordable housing allocations, that's functionally their will serve letter.
Okay. So the time extension is to pursue market rate, not to pursue affordable, because they could do that even without the intent to serve. They could develop something that was affordable, and they don't need the intent to serve. I also think that there's an uncertainty inherent if we give them an extension of 18 months, because after 18 months, we might decide, no, you can't go forward, and that's additional hours for the architect, for the attorney, for everybody involved, including our staff, who will have to continue to work on answering questions that are required of them. And I mean, we can't predict what another agency might do, but I suspect that if it's not affordable, the county isn't going to give them any building permit allocations. So it's not about not being harm. It's about saying, well, we can give this to you, but you still got all these roadblocks, and we might change our minds 18 months down the road. It seems like not the best for them either to do that. To do that, if what we want is affordable housing, revoking this intent to serve, I think we have a strong basis for being able to do that. And it doesn't extinguish all the development rights, because they could try to do an affordable project on that property, which then they would be able to get permitted and built, theoretically.
Okay.
Yeah. I have one.
Oh, did you remember there, Director Howell?
I think I remember, but maybe it's a new one. We'll never know. There is also wording, though, that those fees could be applied to future requirements for the same parcel. So it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion that those fees would be immediately due and payable. I would assume that if they did become immediately due and payable, it would be the property owner's intent not to pursue development on that property. So that's a whole different issue. I think what Director Rice said makes some sense. I think that what I would like to do is say, I think, well, here's the other point. Now I do remember it. Even if we did everything just exactly, everyone goes forward exactly as we're talking, at the end of the day, it still might be the case that the district will have to come up and say, we do not have sufficient water. Or right now, what we can say is we don't know if we have sufficient water or not, and we're certainly not going to put the existing community at risk by creating a situation where it runs out of water sooner than it might otherwise have done so. So I think there is an issue of fairness here, but I think it's incumbent upon us to be very clear so that the developers and the architect and all the other people understand what their risks are and what the situation is. I think what I take from what I'm hearing and from my own opinion right now, we're certainly looking favorable at affordable housing. There's no question about that. We are also in the case where at least some of us do not believe or are not certain how much water we have, and therefore are unwilling to go forward and commit a resource which may not exist. And so I think that that's a fair statement. The last thing I want to say is there is I don't know if this is the appropriate moment, but I think it is. We have it's often said that we don't have land use authority. But there is wording in our code which suggests that there is some kind of land use authority involved. And you will find in Chapter 8.04, Section 100, you will see under B 6A an enumeration of the purposes. It's actually that entire chapter or entire section speaks about the purposes of the district. But 6B has a summary, and let me just read you very briefly from that. It says, the purposes of the district, including but not limited to supplying water for domestic use, irrigation, sanitation, industrial use, fire protection, and recreation, providing collection, treatment, and disposal of sewage, waste, and stormwater of the district and its inhabitants, protecting against fire hazards. I emphasize that one. And planning for and providing for public recreation and furthering watershed protection. So we do have a rather broad, at least as our own view of ourselves. This is in our own code. So I think it is legitimate to also to mention to the architect and the property owner here that the other area of concern that if they wish to go forward with this project that they will need to be very careful to address and to think about is the problem of evacuating the area that they're proposing to build in. And I personally will not agree to any project that doesn't take that into account, because it would be, again, irresponsible for me to put the rest of this community and all the half of the town lives on that hill on the other side, to put them in danger because we've clogged up the exit to Highway 1. So these are important concerns that need to be addressed. I would encourage them to go forward. I like the idea, but I think that we would give the wrong signal by simply extending this letter, either, as I said, with some very serious conditions on it, or as Director Rice suggests, that we encourage them to go forward with the project and come back with an affordable housing project, which we can then help to go forward with. That would be my, no, I think I can shut up now. Thanks.
Vice President.
We've been spending, obviously, a tremendous amount of time on this item. I just want to say the need in this community is not for affordable housing with people that have incomes of $80,000 a year. The need that has been mentioned previously is for low and very low income housing. There are a number of homes in this community where several families live that are providing the services to the community. These are the people that need housing, not necessarily higher income people. Also, as Mr. Puglisi, the architect, mentioned, there are problems with this project, such as parking and terrain, as well as the availability of water. These problems are not going away. And I personally, even if the promise was made in a very altruistic manner by Mr. Pilch, that all the housing that would be available for this project would be for low and very low income, I don't feel that therefore releases the concerns that we would have, such as what Director Howell just brought up. And I can see, many people living there if low and very low income housing is built, but it would still be a serious problem regarding the number of people there, parking, terrain, and so forth. I really don't see that in any way, shape, or form we can even obligate ourselves to moving further with this project. And this is nothing to do with Mr. Pilch. It's just the reality of the situation as far as I see it. And if this means that we have to come up with $51,000 to deal with this situation, then so be it. But I just don't see the practicality of this in the short or long run. And that's how I feel. Thank you.
All right. We're not done yet, huh? Okay, Director Rice.
So Mr. Carmel, I'm going to say a sentence, and if I am incorrect in any of the assumptions that are underlying it, I know you'll correct me, correct? Okay, that's fair. So if this intent to serve letter were not extended today, an affordable project on that property is still possible. And the district would provide the letter of intent for building affordable units only. This request, and it says this in Mr. Belcher's letter and in our staff report quoted from Mr. Belcher's letter, this will allow time to pursue an all-affordable project without losing the ability to continue with the market rate project should the all-affordable project prove infeasible. Since affordable housing is almost never built by a private organization without some funding specifically, there's tax refund credits, there's all kinds of different programs for on the financial side to make sure that the builder still makes a reasonable profit because the funding is less expensive than it would otherwise be. My position is the intent to serve letter has had more than enough chances. Regardless of whether we have water or not, I think that's complicating the issue. I think these additional terms and conditions are great, even if they're restrictive. I don't think that over and over again, a new owner has said, we need more time. I'm sorry. It's been over 20 years, right? Am I counting wrong? And the way I feel is I actually am glad this came back as a resolution to deny the extension. If their intent is affordable housing, they can still pursue that intent. And I would move the resolution of the Board of Directors of Cambria Community Services District to deny the extension of the intent to serve letter for Boris Pilch LLC.
I'll second that.
All right, Director Stidel, additional comment?
Well, one of the discussion points that bothered me a little bit in regards to what Director Howell had described was somehow the idea of doing a program as initially represented by the intent to serve letter versus doing it as affordable housing. He would support affordable housing, and he said that in the same sentences that he was saying that he couldn't support anything that would potentially relate to a problem with egress. So obviously you don't support affordable housing in that side either.
May I answer that?
Sure.
I think Director Seidel is putting words in my mouth. That isn't what if it is what I said or what you heard, it is not what I meant.
Okay.
What did I mean?
I think you meant that the developer should address that issue at some point in time. I think that's what your final conclusion was.
Yeah, thank you.
Was that
okay.
That has to be taken into account at some point and addressed by developers as we go forward. But yeah, I don't think you were saying that's a non-qualifier at this point.
Okay.
What I was, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. What I was trying
Thank you
to,
for the clarification then,
Yeah.
because I saw that as a dichotomy.
Well, let me. Go ahead.
So, what I'm hearing in this motion is that there isn't, and second is that there isn't the intent to make consideration under this vote that might have qualifying statements associated with extending it. Correct?
Yeah, this one is to deny.
Okay.
So, a couple of things here. First, Vice President Farmer talked about people that make $80,000 a year not needing housing here, and that's, in my opinion,
It's ridiculous.
well,
I don't think that's what I said.
well, you said all these affordable housings should be for low and lower income.
I believe that's where the real need is.
I agree there's need there, but I think there's need for $80,000 salary people also in this community because they can't find housing either. There's no rentals for those people, and the cost to buy a house, even for someone that's making $80,000 to $100,000 a year, those aren't here. So there needs to be some housing for those people also. I know a school teacher who teaches here at the elementary school who, with her husband, make more than that, and they had a hard time finding a place that they could buy, and it is stretching them to the max, okay? And that's just not fair for us not to address those people as well as the low and lower income.
Well, let me just add that I would concur with what you're saying. I'm just not so sure this project, as it is located and all the attending problems, are the resolution to that problem, or at least addressing the resolution to that problem.
Okay.
May I offer an amendment
An amendment to what?
to the motion?
Oh.
That
Well, I'm not done with my comments.
Oh, I
haven't had my chance yet, so. All right. So by revoking this, okay, we are basically taking away the ability of this property, okay, to continue to be a viable project in market rate, okay? Which I think is unfair to Mr. Pilch. Where are we going to put him on the wait list? Number one, do we move everybody down that's not on the wait list? Does he get number one? We haven't, otherwise, if we don't say that he goes onto the wait list as number one, okay, then we are basically taking away his ability to build because he will no longer have a letter of intent. I think the letter of intent allows him for 18 months to wait and see what happens in the next 18 months to see if he can build a marketable project. If at the end of 18 months he can't, because one, we don't have water, two, the growth rate hasn't been lifted, the water moratorium, then he's going to have to come back and ask us again. He hasn't been able to build a marketable under this letter of intent for the past 20 years because we haven't let anybody. The county hasn't let anybody. So now, taking away his ability to maintain that position where he is, that was grandfathered to him, and he paid the fees, and he went through all the hoops at that time, I think is not right. We made an obligation to him ages ago to give him a spot that he can then go forward at some point in time, okay, if all of those barriers, as the architect clearly stated, are removed, then maybe he can go ahead with a project. He can still now bring that affordable to us if he decides that makes sense, or if he can get a grant or some other kind of low-cost funding, which may come up with the amount of affordable housing and the priority that it is with the state. But right now, us taking that away from him, I think is wrong. And I will certainly not vote yes on this particular thing. The obligation that we have will be of little risk. Again, we're going to be able to revoke it at any time. If they bring something to us that we really don't like, that they don't answer the question you were talking about evacuation, we can stop and say, wait, okay? We can put those kinds of things into the letter. The affordable, the affordable housing, again, has been taken care of. If they want to do affordable housing, they can bring that to us at any time with meeting the county's criteria, et cetera, et cetera. This one is to maintain their position basically on the wait list so that if all the barriers are removed, if we decide we have the water, if we decide that the county can let us grow, et cetera, then, okay, this letter of intent comes into play. But until then, it really has no substance whatsoever, except that we're going to extend it so that he maintains his position. Yeah. So that's my stand. Ready to vote if
I am in agreement for all of those reasons and several others, and would not be able to. Well, I'll leave it at that.
Director Rice, another comment before we vote?
And I have also.
No comment at this moment. Go ahead.
Director Howell.
The issue of fairness is a difficult one, and I've been struggling with that also. And I can see the point that certainly the gentleman has been waiting for a certain period of time. Where how I see, though, the fairness issue could be looked at a little differently. First of all, as I said before, this current owner of the property did know that the county had a zero growth rate at the time that he bought this property. So he knew there was a certain risk involved in that. So he knew that at that point he was not going to be able to develop it. But the other issue is this. We have provisions in our code and this whole business of, if you issue an intent to serve letter, the person doesn't do anything, they don't get to sit and be the dog in the manger and hold their place. At a certain point, they have to go back. We have to say your letter is revoked, you get back on the wait list. If you're, as I understand it. Now, I'll have to reread that. But the point being that this letter was issued way long ago, before the current owner even got there, by allowing them to maintain what exists, actually effectively is position -1 on the wait list, should it ever be opened, is only by virtue of the fact that the people who had this intent to serve letter in the past simply sat on it. So we are now in the position of rewarding someone who has basically taken advantage of the fact that somebody was sitting on an intent to serve letter, and thereby preventing other allocations from going forward. So there's a fairness issue even the other way around. Now, the list that this would go on, however, if it were to go on a list, would be our multiple family housing list, which I don't believe is closed. I don't think it's closed. Is it closed? Do we know?
As far as I know, all of the
Well, I know
waiting
that
lists are closed.
are all waiting lists
closed,
closed, or is what about?
Affordable, I think, is the
Is
only
the only
one.
one that's
but
open?
That, we don't have a wait list for that because you can get your letter.
Because the only wait list we have is the 56 units that we've allocated for
Which
affordable
don't have-
housing.
For
The rest
affordable.
of them are all closed.
Okay, so the multifamily is closed. Is that what I'm? Okay, just wanted to be sure I understood that. Anyway, that was my point on fairness.
I'd like to amend my motion to include that the property would go to the head of the multifamily wait list, if that's acceptable to the second. Harry did. Because I want clarity because they weren't on the wait list before, so they don't go back to it. But I want to amend the motion to say we revoke the letter and the property goes to the top of the multifamily wait list.
I think that's
for 12 EDUs, which is what it has.
Who seconded that? Vice President Farmer?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm too keen on that, but let's just allow the motion to be voted on with that caveat there, and we'll see what happens in the future.
But before you vote on that, that's an issue that is a little gray for us. If you really want to add that, what I'd recommend is that you allow staff to do a little research and bring this item. I don't want this to happen, but
Right.
bring this item back next week because it's a complicated issue, and there's someone in the first position now that's going to become the second.
And I agree, because whoever is
Okay.
number one on that multi-housing may get upset at this, and they'll be in our face next week. So the letter doesn't expire until the 20th, so we can bring this back next week.
No, it was extended for 30 days. Is that correct? So it would expire on the 15th, I believe, because it was at the 15th, maybe the 16th. You don't count the first day, count the last day. Is that wrong?
So then I would withdraw my amending motion so we can vote on the main motion and move forward with the discussion,
All right.
if
so
that's acceptable to the second.
we're going to leave it the way it was, as written, and let's ask for a vote.
Director Rice?
Yes.
Vice President Farmer?
Yes,
Director Howell? Director Stidel?
No.
President Pearson?
No. All right. We are on to the next item, which is going to be item number F, as we discussed earlier. And this, again, is on the affordable housing and all that kind of thing. General Manager, do you want to go ahead and introduce this item?
Sure, Mr. President. The town clerk will, or district clerk will address 4 Foxtrot.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. This item is for the board to consider appointing an ad hoc committee to evaluate the affordable housing application allocations, and staff is recommending that the ad hoc committee be tasked with evaluating and providing a recommendation on the affordable housing applications and create a process to prioritize those allocations with a recommendation and approval to provide to the full board for adoption. I do have the affordable housing list of applicants with me, and there are 32 of them.
Okay. I would like to expand the charter, if it were, of this ad hoc committee to review our ordinance in the counties and make it clear to the rest of the board members as to exactly where we stand on the affordable housing issue, to review the current will serve lists that we have, and we have a couple of those, to ascertain and bring to us a report that says this is the number of letters of intent that we currently have active out there, and these are the number of current water meters that are in the ground that are buildable on, so that we have an idea as to what that is.
I'm sorry, what kind of meters?
Meters in the ground. They're not being used.
You're talking about they're actually there, but there's no house attached
There's no
to
house.
it.
They're paying the monthly minimum, but
So-called
they haven't built their
inactive.
house yet. Okay? And also to review the retrofit and conservation program in our ordinance. That's in paragraph 4.20, and to bring that up to date and up to speed so that we understand exactly where we are on conservation in this community and what additional opportunities we have, if any, to conserve more. Some of these appliances were changed out in the 80s, 90s, and technology, believe it or not, has progressed since then, at least in some areas. And so we probably have more opportunity to conserve again. And so I'd like that program to be brought up to date so that we have a good understanding of where we are and where we can get to in the future. And I think that the ad hoc committee, working with the staff, can get that together probably by the end of the year. But the other stuff, I'd like them to come back maybe in November and give us an update as to where we are on affordable housing, what is out there. We have more people applying all the time, and we need to get a handle on this so that we know what we're up against and what we're going to be doing, okay? And so I'd like to add those items to the 2 that are already on the discussion item, and ask for discussion on that at this time. Director Rice.
I'm okay with everything except for we do need to evaluate the conservation program. I think that is outside of what the ad hoc for affordable housing should be doing, though. I think they've got enough to wrap their brains around and recommendations to bring us without having that. I had thought we were having the Resources Infrastructure Committee look at that look at our conservation program and see if we could figure out if it's actually being effective based on what we've been doing, which is kind of what sounds like you were describing. I think they do go hand in hand, but I think that goes beyond a subject for an ad hoc on affordable housing. I think the other one that you added is important to have for sure.
Then I would change it to include that, because part of the affordable housing thing is that they have to get the credits, right, from that program. And that's why I was referencing that program also, is that in order to do the affordable housing, they have to buy the credits, or they have to do some retrofits, et cetera, correct? Or not?
Yeah.
That is true. It's also true that that's the case for all different kinds of remodels and builds that would add fixtures. I'm just saying, from being on the Water Emergency Alternative Citizens Committee, that's a much bigger job than it seems like just from the outset, and that should be something that I think it would be a better focus to stick to. This is the, and I understand, because there's an appeal going on an affordable unit that we're trying to make sure, but I think that needs to be I think we need to separate those two things, frankly. And if we need to put together a separate ad hoc committee to look at that, or direct the Resources and Infrastructure Committee to look at that, I think affordable housing is as Director Steidel and I discovered when we were working on this before together as an ad hoc committee, affordable housing is big enough on its own without that extra, that maybe we could have that. I understand the importance of it. I'm not saying we don't do it. I'm just concerned that assigning that to the affordable isn't the right place.
Director Howell?
Well, they are sort of related. The recent appeal, the one thing that keeps occurring in the staff report is the CCSD is supposed to demonstrate that the retrofit program supplies sufficient water for affordable housing. They seem to be related. So in that sense, they're together. But in the other sense, they are, as I see it, rather huge jobs. So I don't know what, and R&I committee have been working on some of it, but it's a huge job even for them. Maybe there's a way of parceling it out somehow, or having the ad hoc committee work with the subcommittee of R&I to get, if it's all right with the chairman, to get some additional manpower and work perhaps that way or something.
All right. Well, we can scratch that one for now, but we've got to get our handle on that, and we have to do it fairly rapidly.
Well, you said you didn't, right, but you also said that wasn't the first priority that we wanted to have for the ad hoc committee, or was it? So we can assign it to them later if that's what we need to do, right?
Yeah, but I think addressing the program as laid out in paragraph in the ordinance 4.20 is a priority, because it is a subject of the Coastal Commission's report.
Maybe we just need to make it very specific to that affordable project then, because I'm just telling you from my experience, and I've been on this board a long time, and I've worked with a lot of different staff people and board members, all of whom were very smart. And it's a big job. And if the board supports going forward with that and that ad hoc committee, I don't have a problem with that. Be aware it's a big job.
Well, okay. We'll take it out of this, but somewhere
we do
that
need
needs.
to. I'm with you
It
there.
doesn't need to be addressed that we want to change that particular ordinance. It needs, where are we on that particular item?
And that's looking at the data. So I mean, if that would be like, that's an important. I agree.
Yeah, we have to get that data straight.
Where's the district engineer?
So we'll take that off of the ad hocs item. So they'll basically have 4. They'll have the 2 that's on there. Evaluate and provide recommendation of the affordable housing applications for allocation. Create a process to prioritize allocations. review our ordinance in the counties to make sure that what we're attempting to do is meeting the criteria, and also review the current will serve list to get an accurate count of meters already committed, either by letter of intent or by meters in the ground. Because that's pretty easy to do.
I move that we create an ad hoc committee to take on those 4 tasks.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yes, Ms. Richards.
No way, we don't need public to
Please,
comment.
I even put some lipstick on this. Just clarification, President Pearson. Your staff is saying that the list is closed. Melissa Bland is actually turning people away to sign up for this list. So is the list open or closed, sir? The affordable housing list, we have 32
As far as I know, it is open. I don't know what
Two
made-
individuals have already approached Melissa Bland to sign up, and have been turned away, saying that the list was closed.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't know why she did that.
Okay.
As far as I know, it's still open.
Okay,
So
good.
The board hasn't had a discussion on
the
it.
board hasn't had any reason to close
I
it.
just didn't know
but
if I had missed something, so I apologize.
Melissa is probably did that because of the uncertainty of where we're going with it, and that's why we're appointing the ad hoc to get with her and look at what's going on.
So Melissa Bland has the executive order decision, power-making decision to go ahead and close the lists like that? I mean, that's what I'm surprised about.
Mr. President,
Was staff aware?
I think I can explain
Right.
it a little.
Just curious. Okay, so it's still open then, officially?
As far as I know, yes. As
Okay,
far
thank
as
you.
I know, it's still open.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we vote on that, are there any volunteers to serve on that ad hoc committee?
I would volunteer.
Okay, we have 2 volunteers. That's great. Okay, Director Howell and Director Stidel will be the 2 people on that ad hoc committee. We have a resolution. Do we need a resolution, Mr. Carmel, or can we just name an ad hoc committee here?
No, you need a motion.
Need a motion? We have a motion. Do we have a second of the motion?
Well, I'll second it.
Okay, Vice President Farmer seconds. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
The motion was only to create the committee, so let me amend the motion to include Director Stidel and Director Howell be serving on that committee.
Excellent, thank you.
I need a second on that.
I'll second that too.
Yay.
All right, now we can have a roll call vote. Yeah.
Director Rice?
Aye.
Vice President Farmer?
Aye.
Director Howell?
Aye.
Director Stidel?
Aye.
President Pearson?
Aye. All right. We've got a lot more to accomplish here. Do we need a 5-minute break at this point? We've been going for over 2 hours. Just a very, very short break, please. Be back here in 5 minutes. That's 19 minutes after by the clock in the back of the room.
Pretty soon they're going to start talking 24-hour clock.
All right, let's reconvene the meeting. We're on item number 4C. I do have a request from the public to speak. 1, 2, Ms. Hendricks, you're first, and Ms. Bettenhausen, you're second. Oh, I'm sorry. General Manager, would you introduce the item, please?
General Manager Weigold.
Sorry for, Mr. President, for 4C, Town Clerk will address this agenda item.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. This item is for the Policy Committee. We have a vacancy on the committee due to the resignation of Mike Lyons. We have reviewed the bylaws, and we are required to advertise for 2 weeks in a local newspaper, on the CCSD website, and the CCSD public bulletin boards. So that's in accordance with the vacant seat provision on the bylaws of 2.3C. So if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We did go ahead and attach the 3 applications from the people who were not selected previously, and they may want to apply, or you may want to go ahead and allow their applications to be included in this next recruitment.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Heinrichs, followed by Ms. Bettenhausen.
Thank you. The Policy Committee, as it's now constituted, is all composed of men. Director Rice has made a point in the past that it is desirable to include women on these standing committees, and I believe she even advocated for holding out at least 2 seats for women. You have 2 good women candidates who have already applied, and this is going to be open for 2 weeks, I encourage other women to think seriously about applying for this position. But even as it stands now, you have 2 very effective, experienced women who have applied, and I encourage you to choose one of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bettenhausen.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Beringer was just standing there. I'm sorry he left, because I was going to suggest that if you do continue this to your next meeting for more candidates, that you inquire of Mr. Beringer whether he might have a sex change. That's a joke. That's a joke, friends, about sex. I know I'm a strong feminist in my perspectives these days, especially. I would like to speak a little more to the other point, although I'm sure you won't pay much attention after what I just said, given the prejudices against women speaking these days, which is one reason I'm a fan of Greta Thunberg from Sweden. I think she leads the way in many ways for those of us who used to be strongly feminist back in the 1970s and still are. I really hope that you commend Mr. Beringer for having given so much public service to the CCSD. I think he's been clear in his intentions to do so and has often succeeded in meeting that public service goal of his. At the same time, I think that it's important to get a very new perspective on policy right now. There is a clarity about the need for this board to establish its clear policies on many issues, including in lieu fees, retrofit, conservation, many of them. Your ad hoc committee you just appointed will certainly move on that, but we also need to use policy as a community in order to make some tough decisions right now, including on climate change. I commend to you both Leslie Richards and Claudia Worthen. I don't recommend one over the other, but I know something about both of them, and that is that they will give very diligent time and effort to studying the agenda of the committee before it meets, which is crucial to what the standing committees are supposed to be doing. And they will speak with considerable, clear, reasonable passion about what they bring to that discussion. I hope that you will choose one of them today and urge you please to do so. And certainly, now I'm going to be snide, I suppose. You have my real apologies if you thought that I was really being nasty to Jim by referring to the potential sex change. And I will definitely contact him directly via email to make very clear I was not suggesting he do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Bettenhausen, we can't select somebody today. By the bylaws, we have to advertise again. So
You advertised for 2 weeks already.
no, we.
Posted. Oh, well, you make the decision about reality. I stand back and just await your decision.
Ms. Richards.
quickly, I love Claudia Harmonworth, and she's perfectly qualified position. So if it becomes down to Claudia and myself, I say flip a coin, let the fates decide. And I am applying. Can I use my application from before, or do I have to reapply? Sir, ma'am, sir, can I just roll my application?
We will decide that momentarily.
Okay, so I just want to make
We
sure.
have to decide that as a board. I can't just make that
Okay,
decision.
great. Well, I want to apply, so to run for the position. So when you decide, I'll check. Thanks.
Okay, so the only real question in front of us is, do we need them just to indicate their, I think we need them to re-indicate their willingness to serve. But
Yeah.
other than that, they don't have to put in a new application. They just need to let the clerk know, and Ms. Richards just has, okay, that they are willing to serve and that they want their application to stay.
I think the only other thing that would need to be considered if there have been changes in street addresses for residents or telephone numbers or
Yeah.
email addresses or any of those kinds of things, that those need to be addressed also.
Yeah, updated if necessary, but otherwise, okay? And so, do we need a resolution on this to go ahead and?
I think staff is just looking for some direction. Are we going to open it? It's in our bylaws, so we open it and
Yeah.
advertise, and then
We're gonna advertise for the next 2 weeks, and then at the first October meeting, we'll have the applications in front of us, and we'll be able to choose a replacement at that time. And until then, Director Howell is short a person. Okay.
so we don't need to take an action on this one. Okay.
Okay, moving on. The next one is item 4D. Mr. Weigold.
Yes, Mr. President, staff is recommending that the board review the status of the Van Gordon Creek property and discuss potential options. We've outlined a couple on the staff report. There obviously may be other options that we've not thought of, but I'll review those potential options as we see them right now. But regardless of what we do, we think that one of the things we need to do is have a building inspection one way or the other to for sure understand with a little more detail that the current status of that building, whether we could do what we could do with it. But one is no action. What we have done is we've cleared the property of the underbrush, weeds. We've trimmed trees back from the building, so it's clean and secure. We've covered the windows and boarded up for security purposes because we've had some people trying to live in there. And this is right next door to the park ranger, so he obviously has security in mind for himself and his family. So one action would be just no action at all for now, and that may be for fiscal reasons among others. We don't have anything budgeted for this right now. Another option is to renovate, and one of the things in our mind is we have a need for housing for the staff, particularly those that are on call for the water and wastewater departments, to minimize response time and or to potentially offer housing as an additional incentive to work for the district. We're in a remote location, and even though our salaries for our staff members are competitive, we're remote, and that means that it's costly to get here. And we have some folks that are commuting in over an hour away. So renovations is certainly, and with the need for housing is in mind. And then demolition obviously is an option as well. And then the fourth option outlined is selling or transferring the property, potentially to the state park organization, though we haven't had any, we haven't approached them for their interest. Last but not least, we have 2 water meters on that property. This is a property that had multiple buildings on it, and we've demoed some buildings in the past on this property. So this is really the last main home and adjacent. There's an outbuilding I think that was used in the past for laundry and other miscellaneous utility, but we'd have to do some more investigation to understand what our options would be with the water meters that are currently there. And again, last but not least, we would at least minimally recommend a home inspection by someone certified.
Okay. My general opinion is that we need to do some more research here, and I think there's a couple of things. One is the building inspection. 2 is an updated cost to bring the property up to livability. 3 is an updated cost to demo the property. And last, it seems to me that this property is like 93 acres.
That I'd have to investigate.
Okay. And I think that we should at least get a feeling from the state park people as to whether they would have any interest in it. Okay, either just the house and five acres around it, or the entire property. Okay, which as I recall, it's a big piece of property. It's like 90 acres or something like that. And my idea here is that maybe we can make a deal with the state parks that we give them the property and they give us the pipeline that we've always wanted to get rid of the brine, okay, through their property and bury it properly, okay? I agree that would take another 5 years to get that done, but that's something that we have to be looking at, an alternative to getting rid of the brine other than trucking it off. So I'd be interested in the state parks ideas on that. The other is that we could, offer that land as a conservation easement as part of our mitigation to the SWF project. So those are my ideas on what marching instructions we should give the staff, and have them bring it back probably in January with all the information. That'll give you plenty of time to research all that, get in touch with state parks and that kind of thing. Does that sound reasonable to everybody, Director Rice?
I appreciate that you put in potentially having a homeless shelter or housing. I don't think that the district needs to get into that business, but maybe you said there was like a utility where they were doing laundry or something, that if it's possible to put a shower up there and restrooms for the homeless population, it might. We have such a large one, it might actually be helpful for those even who are living in their cars and would have a job, except they don't have any place to clean up. And I'd just be interested in, I know Los Osos is putting in a portable shower down near their community center, and it's like a wash station place that folks can use. So I'd be interested in the possibility. I'll look and see what Los Osos is doing. I just wanted to put it out there as an idea. I know the community has said things numerous times about.
Yeah. My only concern there is that the state park ranger lives
totally understood. But you know what? Homeless people are just homeless. They're not dangerous. Some of them are dangerous. Some people who live in houses are dangerous too. So, let's not draw a broad brush.
Okay. We do have one request for, no, we have two. I'm sorry. We have two people that want to talk on this one. Why don't we have Ms. Bettenhausen go first this time, and we'll have Ms. Hendricks go second.
I want to thank you, Mr. President, for just raising 5 big issues that need to be considered before your board takes any action whatsoever, other than to affirm that consideration. I really regret that in the clearing of the brush around that house, which is a rather charming old house, actually, even in its current condition, I really regret that in the clearing of the brush, no attention was paid to the native and other plants that were planted around that property and nurtured by human beings for years and years and years, including one of the most spectacular fuchsia plants in Slow County. And I hope that you will give careful consideration in your deliberations, not only to the 5 points that you asked for, Mr. President, but also to the issue of environmental sensitivity of the site. Whether it's 1 acre or 93, which is very interesting. I'm going to go back and look at your documents to double check that acreage. Whether it's 1 acre or 93, it is crucial to protect by the state park area, by the ESHA, the habitation, by ESHA areas in the near proximity, including maybe that one, and other concerns, the environmental impact of any choice that you make on that. And I would be very interested, I hope I live long enough past my aging years at the moment, I hope I live long enough to see any deliberation between state parks and CCSD on the possibility of exchanging property for a permission on a brine disposal pipeline. And I speculate immediately, where would that pipe go? So I thank you, Mr. President, for having raised that already. It gives me something to focus on other than the acidification of the ocean and the destruction of the ability of California mussels to hold on to the rocks, which is really a problem here. And I can fill you in on that with the details if you'd like. The first graders found it fascinating yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Heinrichs?
Thank you for bringing this up. I love the idea of renovating this and turning it into housing for staff members. I think that's a great idea. Mr. Weigold mentioned this at another meeting. Because of our remote location, Cambria's solution now to getting staff members is to give them district trucks and let them drive back and forth and commute. I just don't think that's acceptable in any way. And I think it is a lovely setting. I think it could be turned into either a home or possibly a dormitory that could be used to house, say, visiting firefighters, other people who come through the community. I think this would be a way to spend some money and end up with an actual asset for the district instead of just paying for fines and administrative and regulatory testing. We could actually end up with something attractive, and I think it's a great idea. And as with Elizabeth, I thank you for bringing up the idea of a pipeline. I can't imagine that a pipeline to disperse brine would be allowed into the National Marine Sanctuary, but it's good to know that the district is pursuing this now. Thank you.
Ms. Richards?
So I've been on the Creek Road for 20 years. It used to be rented by the Spillman. The Spillmans were there, and I was bummed when the CCSD evicted them because it's better to have people on site and maintain the property than have a vacant parcel. Have the directors actually gone out there and done a tour of the parcel? I hope they have. Good. That's good to know. I agree with Christine Heinrichs and Elizabeth. I think it's a great idea making it staff housing. This is phenomenal opportunity for the district to show its creative thought processes, and you have a huge, beautiful site there. You have state parks, a ranger that lives close by to help monitor what's happening with that site. But I think we should be careful on talking about either tearing it down or selling the water meters off. I think we should rebuild that site for staff housing. I think you could make a dormitory, or you could make 4 units, multiple units on the site. The building that was torn down, by the way, was an actual barn. So this was actually the ranch facility. And I think because of ag rules and regulations on buildings, you could actually bring that barn back and not get into any trouble here too, by the way. So there's a lot of things you could do with this property. I'm really excited to see this on the agenda. Again, I was bummed when the tenants were evicted a long time ago just for insurance reasons, because I knew that it would go derelict. And it was a phenomenal property, a phenomenal house, and it had some of the most beautiful gardens on the Creek Road. So please, as many options as possible. Thank you so much.
All right, any other discussion? Yes, Director Rice.
I think before we all get really excited about the potential for this, we need to reach out to state parks first. Because I'm sure they will hear about this meeting and they'll go, well, nobody talked to us about, and we're neighbors, we need to be good neighbors, and that means communicating.
Yeah, we have communicated with the park ranger at least on cleaning it up and boarding it up and that kind of thing. So we're somewhat in touch, but I agree. We need to reach out to them and say, what would you see as a possible for it? All right.
We have a lot to make up for not going and talking to them on other things, so we need
Director
to
Seidel.
The other thing that, and I have no idea if any practicality to this, but having just gotten on an ad hoc committee, I guess I can find out some information. I'm wondering too, if in terms of renovation, whether we could guard that property by putting deed restrictions on it for being a workforce category affordable housing. And I don't know whether there are any variations on the theme that might allow that to happen or not, but that fitted in along with the potential of staff resources having access to it for use, I think could be at least something to look into.
Good. Vice President Farmer.
Yeah, I just want to briefly comment on what Leslie Richards said about the Spillmans living out there and then being evicted. I knew a woman, Teresa Campbell, who lived out there for a number of years with her daughter, and I think she was partly responsible for tending to the beauty of nature that surrounded that structure. So, having someone in there who has, let's say, an ecological conscience, environmental conscience, as well as providing housing for an employee would be really cool. Thank you.
Okay. So have we given you enough direction, General Manager?
You have. Thank you.
All right. Let's move along here to item number E. Does the clerk want to introduce? Oh, this is probably Mr. Carmel's.
We're fighting for it, but
We're fighting for it?
It's an interesting item. I think it got kicked back to me. I'll be very brief. Senate Bill 998, the Water Shutoff Protection Act, was enacted by the California legislature in September of 2018. It's a comprehensive revision of the law regulating termination of water service for residential customers that the district must comply with by April 1st, 2020. It requires a written policy on discontinuation of residential water service for non-payment that must include several components, including a plan for deferred or reduced payments, alternative payment schedules, a formal appeals process, as well as others. It specifies at least a 60-day waiting period before terminating water service to a delinquent residential account, as well as extensive notice requirements prior to termination. It's layered with many other procedural requirements. Staff's requesting direction from the board to prepare a policy to implement SB 998. And currently we have our own sequence of shutoff regulations in our code in section 404080. So we'd be replacing what we currently have in there. And Ms. Duffield knows very much about 404080. So if you want to know what our current procedures are, she'd gladly review them for you.
Okay.
I guess that's about all.
Very good.
I have looked around for models because typically lawyers just cheat and steal.
Yeah, if somebody else has already done it, let's copy.
Yeah, I've seen a couple, but not as many as I'd hoped for. So we'll start the search. I mean, subject to whatever you say.
All right. This seems to me to be something that staff just needs to go ahead and take action on and get it done and bring it back in December, so we're ahead of the schedule and we're looking.
We need to start early because we'll have to work through it. So yes, December or January should probably be adequate.
Yeah, let's hold it for December right now and put it on the agenda for then and see if you can get it done by then. Okay. Anybody else? Director Howell.
Is this something that the policy committee could assist with?
I think this is it would take them months to get through this one, I think. I think. It's mostly legalese and that kind of thing. Director Rice?
There is one section that I think could be helpful to have the policy committee give some further guidance to the staff in the process. If you look under, I'm looking at page 23, I think. It says payment options near the bottom. Yeah, 23. If all the conditions under Section E are met, the purveyor must offer. So this statement says the purveyor must offer the customer one of the following alternative payment arrangements, and then it says in the next statement that the purveyor gets to pick what those are. So I think that it would that one little section, and that, because that's where we say here's how we'll accept it in payment. So I think that might be, or for the finance committee, one or the other. But this is the only section that I saw, that as reading through it, that has wiggle room where policy would be different from law potentially. Because we have to tell the staff how to collect payment or whatever, right?
So the purveyor chooses which of the alternate payment. So that's, we need to choose one of those before we write our ordinance, or do we do that we can do that on an individual basis based on that person's circumstances?
I don't think there's much discretion there. I think we just have, we have the requirement to offer one of those options to the customer. So they'd all be part of
Or all of them.
Right, exactly. Here are your options. Please select one.
I think having a policy in place helps staff to not have to do it on a case by case.
I think it's the customer.
Because there's always discretion from the general manager if there is an issue, right?
Right. I think it's really the customer who makes this choice. That's how I read this.
Okay, then I misunderstood if that's the way that
That's
it's.
not what it says.
I think it's the
It says the purveyor.
The purveyor offers these options to the customer.
And then the
It
next
doesn't say that.
clause says the purveyor chooses.
Yeah.
Chooses
Yeah, second
the
paragraph
arrangements, the
two.
different
Yeah.
arrangements.
Chooses which
Could
of
be
the
all or none.
alternative arrangements.
One of the
Right.
following alternative payment
One or all.
arrangements. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what we end up doing is including all of them.
Okay,
And I'm babbling because this is new to me too. They're all available.
Yeah,
They're gonna be a part-
and I think that would be, okay, what are the circumstances of the customer?
Right.
And which one
Makes sense.
makes sense for that particular customer to use? Fine.
why don't, well,
May I jump in? Sorry. If that's true, if you wanted to do it that way, then I think it's even more important that you have policy in place, because otherwise you have the chance of being, there's the danger of being arbitrary. So, in other words, the criteria, if it is going to be, if it's supposed to be situational, then there needs to be a policy laying out what the criteria are for choosing A over B over C. Otherwise, whoever is making that choice can be accused of favoritism or improper X or Y. It just saves the staff from having to stick their necks out there and be unprotected. So I highly recommend that if you do choose that I think, yeah, you definitely need a written policy on that one.
the other question, I just had one other quick question that I want to make sure staff addresses. Right now, I believe that if you don't pay your water bill, you have a lien on your property, and we collect it through property taxes. Is that true? So I didn't see anything in the bill that said something about that. So let's make sure if we're going to keep that policy, we incorporate it if it's possible to incorporate it still.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is, but we will look
I think
into
they're
it.
basically telling us this is the way you're going to
This
do
is the way you
it.
do it. We'll look into the issue, though.
Yes, Director Stidle.
Going back to the payment options, as a precursor to making a policy, I think that there needs to be some feedback from financial staff about the ability to, what are reasonable ways of collecting those fees, and what kind of encumbrance in terms of administrative actions are required to be able to do them, and whether systematically it's something that can be done.
We currently offer payment plans to any individual that asks us for such a plan.
Okay,
And
so.
we extend that up to 12 months. I have the authority to extend that up to 12 months,
Okay.
if they so choose.
So in view of the other options that are offered in this, whether or not there are limitations either systematically or difficulties in administrative management of those other options, or if you had all four options available and operating at the same time, what kind of difficulty is there in the administrative management of that?
Yeah, we need some more research into this, and I think when you bring it back in December, you need to give us a better idea here, because one of these here, partial or full reduction of the unpaid balance without additional charges to other ratepayers, to me is not an option. I mean, with all these other options that are available, that just doesn't make any sense to me. So if we have to offer that, we have to offer that. But if we don't have to offer that, that would be one that would, I'd nix. But anyway.
The other topic that I want to make sure we have addressed is how the shut-off, turn back on fees fit into this issue too.
For rentals?
And late fees and that kind of thing, because just from experience, before I was on this board, it's you get the shut-off fee, you get the turn-on fee, you get the late fee, and you got to pay those first before you pay out the water bill you couldn't pay in the first place because you didn't have money. It's not because you're lazy sometimes, it's because you got no money, and if you got to pay $240 plus the late fee just to get it turned back on, which I think this addresses, but I just want to make sure that we include how that part of it fits in.
Okay. Director Howell, you good?
So should we just wait then until I get some direction back from the board before I pass anything on to the policy committee? Or shall I go with just that one item that?
No, I think let's get direction from staff before.
We have enough to do. I just thought, more meat for the grinder.
More than enough to do. Okay. So you have enough direction, Mr. Carmel, to move forward on this thing? Okay.
If I could, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
If I could just, I know staff is going to have a lot of work to do with regard to this issue, so I'd just be curious to know how often this circumstance of non-payment comes up that the district needs to address. How often does this happen? What are the usual reasons for it happening? Obviously, everybody has a unique situation, but I'd like to know what these have been over the years, especially the most common ones, and what are the most common ways of resolving this to the advantage of both the district and the ratepayer. Thank you.
You want to answer that now or later?
I can answer it now.
Okay.
So when we do billing, customers get approximately 30 days to pay their bill once the bills get billed and go in the mail. If we don't receive payment in that 30 days, then we send what is called a reminder notice out, and then they get 15 additional days to go ahead and get that payment into us. And then after that, they receive a 48-hour notice before their water is shut off. And we tag it when we do the 48-hour notices. They're placed on the door. They're sent to the tenant and the owner if it's not an owner-occupied property. So we send notices everywhere, plus we post it on the parcel. And through the time that I've been the finance manager, I've been working with the billing clerk to contact people when we're getting so many shutoffs, because we were having approximately 60 shutoffs every other month. And that's a laborious effort for the water department to go through, because as they're going out and posting, the shutoffs and things that are happening, we're calling them and saying, okay, somebody came and paid their account, go unlock them. So they're out there locking, they're unlocking, and it's very laborious on our office staff and our field staff. So what our practice has been for the last couple of billing periods is once we have that 30-day notice and we're posting, we're seeing customers that show up on that 48-hour notice that are not normal shut-off customers, we're actually calling and saying, were you aware? Were you out of town? Did you not get your bill? We're just giving you a friendly reminder that we're getting ready to post 48-hour notices. And so we've gotten those numbers down to around 40 shutoffs versus 60. So it does help a little bit, but we still have a pretty large number of shutoffs that occur every other month.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that at the end, because that was basically my first question. How often does this happen? And I had no idea that it was, that's a fairly large number. I mean, we're in a small community. That's still a fairly large number of people that, for one reason or another, are having difficulty paying their bill.
It's rental turnovers and house sales too. Somebody puts their house up and no one thinks to pay the bill, and
Right.
the real estate person takes somebody into the house and there isn't any power.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I need to get a motion to extend
So moved.
to
To 5:30, 6?
6 o'clock, yeah. I think we can finish by now.
Okay.
I'll second
that.
It includes a closed session.
Right, seconded.
All right, we have a motion and a second to extend our meeting to 6 o'clock. We have a roll call vote, please.
Director Rice?
Aye.
Director Stidel?
Aye.
Director Howell?
Aye.
Vice President Farmer?
Aye.
President Pearson?
Aye. All right. Moving on. We're at the last item on the regular business, item number D, discussion consideration regarding the use of electronic devices during board meetings. Who's introducing this one?
I got this, Mr. President. So in my homework of understanding how special districts work and the Brown Act works, came to my attention during a turnover that we had no policy for use of electronics during board meetings. And the recommendation for the district association is that we should have a policy. And this is just pretty common sense. We're working in a day, an age where electronics are common. A lot of people use electronics for paper saving and environmental reasons, which I think is all laudable. But the specifics of the Brown Act, and I can allow the district council to weigh in if he feels so moved. But what the Brown Act specifically talks against doing is communicating either between board members or with a board member communicating to an outside entity outside the board meeting. And so the staff is recommending that the board discuss and consider the use of electronics during the board meeting. So again, I want to emphasize, we're not advocating against using electronics. It's just specifically keep it within the meeting and for purposes of the meeting.
Okay. So, both of the Heinrichs would like to speak on this one. I hope you have opposing views so that we can get everything out now. So, ladies first, I guess, here. Huh?
Yes, of course, I defer to Gordon as vice chair of the policy committee, and he will do as he likes. Who's it who said men and dogs ought to just get used to it, that women and cats are just going to do what they want to do? I thank you for bringing this up. I loved the summary. The staff did a great job because I hadn't really thought of this as an issue, but it certainly has been a problem in meetings. And I think it also might consider applying this also to staff. As Leslie brought up earlier, this was a problem when Melissa Bland was taking comments, was dealing with an applicant in the midst of a meeting and coming forward with changes. I think applicants need to kind of stick with whatever they've written, and if they then need to make changes, then they can bring back other applications. It certainly could fall under the policy committee, but in the meantime, no texting during meetings. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Heinrichs, the notable vice chair of the policy committee.
we may need to address this in policy too, is a good thought. My thinking is this is very important, as communications, as Christine has mentioned, of communications back and forth, that we don't know who is at the other end of these communications or within the staff themselves. So as I mentioned, the Brown Act would be important. But one solution might be for the public is that you delay the broadcast 15 minutes to 30 minutes before it goes out. That way you'll have nobody from the outside at the same time that things are being voted on to help sway conclusions. So that would be my thought to move forward.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Richards.
So I have a hard time sitting on the chairs. It's really difficult for my back. So I apologize. I stand in the back or I pace, and I apologize, but I have a bad back. And because I'm in the back, I can see the last row of chairs in the back. And during a number of fairly busy and contentious meetings, I could see everybody's iPhones. And I have to apologize. I am a nosy Nelly. And I stood behind a particular individual who was actually emailing, texting directly to a director. And the things that were on this person's text was what was coming out of the director's mouth 5 minutes later. And this was after public comment was closed. And so all I ask is for a level and fair playing field. You have a particular window of opportunity for public to make comments, and these individuals were texting after public comment had been closed, and that was brought up into the discussion. This is very important. This is a very critical component here, and that's why there's rules and regulations for this. When you're deliberating, I would want the board to be deliberating with each other, not with 6 other people in the room as well, besides the people sitting in the chairs here. So again, all we're asking for is a fair and level playing field. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Vice President Farmer, first up. Oh, you're not first up. All right. And then Director Steidel.
I appreciate that Ms. Richards may have viewed people's iPhones from the back of the room or standing over their shoulder as they're texting, but I guess what amazes me is that if that's the case, I've never seen anyone at this board pick up their phone to receive a text while we've been at a board meeting, and if disparaging references are made, then
I didn't say this board.
Then why did you even bring it up?
No, but I've seen it in the past with other CCSD boards. So it wasn't a disparaging comment. It was a fact that I saw a text and a director. Now, I didn't say it was this board.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Director Rice.
I too appreciated the staff report. It was very well written and very well reasoned. I have occasionally used my phone during a meeting, but never on an item we were actually discussing that was on the agenda, and not to anybody in the audience. I mean, receive a text from my mom, how are you? I usually just send her a little heart shape. It's like nothing. But I do understand that we are working on building trust, and people can't see everything that I've got on my computer. They don't know if I've got Solitaire open or something else. They don't know that I'm not texting to somebody in public. I would recommend that we send this to the policy committee as a priority policy to review, so that we can show to the public that we hear their concerns and we want to address their concerns, even though we individually consider ourselves to be ethical people and wouldn't do that. They don't necessarily know that, and so having a policy we can all agree on, I think, is important.
Director Al.
Okay, I think the policy committee would gladly accept the assignment, and it might save a little time for this board if you allowed them to come back to you with some recommendations and then perhaps discuss it at that point. I think it'd save everybody some time and let us do the hard work on that one.
Yeah, and I think you could make it one of your first things to do. So
yes.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Do we have concurrence on that? That we're going to send it to the policy committee and ask them to make it a priority and bring it back by, I don't know, November maybe? See if you can. If you can't, let us know, okay? All right. Future agenda.
I'm sorry, before we move on, I just want to be clear. I don't think it needs to apply to staff because I think it can be helpful for staff to get information from folks at the
Right.
office. And they're providing the
researching.
information. We're the decision makers. So I
Yes.
think it's important that
Yeah.
we don't do that, but I don't think we need to apply it to staff.
Good point. Thank you. All right. Future agenda items. Anyone have anything that they want to make sure is on the agenda? As you've noticed, we've swapped the agendas so that the regular business is at the first meeting and the staff is on the second. Staff reports are on the second mostly. And the reason we did that was to give staff more time to get their reports done, because as we're having this first meeting on the second Thursday, it's often like the 8th, or next month it's the 10th, and they just have a hard time getting it all done, which is good. Okay, so now we give them a little bit more time to have a more cogent report, et cetera, et cetera. So from now on, we will be doing regular business, okay, on the first Thursday, on the second Thursday, and the third Thursday will be mostly consent agenda and staff reports and that kind of thing, just to let you know.
Liaison reports and other board
Liaison
member
reports
reports
will all be then too.
on the second.
On the
okay.
second one, yes.
Okay.
Which I think will allow Vice President Farmer to report on his stuff that
On the-
actually
yeah.
happened that month instead of last month.
Yeah, especially since after this, I am actually going to the FFRP meeting, so thank you.
Well, if we get out of here on time.
My future agenda item is more of a reminder that the board wanted to put together a policy on evicting the homeless on our properties, the homeless encampments, because we need to make sure that we're respecting the civil rights of the homeless and their property. So I don't know what we've put together yet, but it hasn't come back to the board yet, so.
No, I know that David Hirsch and Carlos have combined to develop something that
Okay.
we could bring back whenever you need it.
That would be great. I think it's important for us to have a discussion on that issue.
Yeah, I think it is. Should we
Put that on.
have them present it to the policy committee? I mean, that would make sense to me, and let them kind of work through
That's why I
the
said
verbiage.
kind of a future agenda
Okay.
item, I think.
Okay, so then we'll transmit that to the policy committee and.
Okay.
they can go from
Yes,
So
great.
So, Mr. Carmel, if I may, we'll wait for hearing from you, and then we'll take it forward from there. Is that good?
Yeah, he indicated that they were probably almost done, so stand by.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
Yes, Vice President Farmer.
Yeah, I know we're pressed for time, so I'll make this try to make this as quickly as possible. So Ms. Bettenhausen in the beginning was addressing Greta Thunberg and the climate emergency that this planet is facing. I just want to let folks know that a week from tomorrow, September 20th, downtown San Luis Obispo, the youth are going to be rallying for creating greater awareness for not only the youth, but us folks that helped create this problem. So if you feel like attending, I think it's going to be happening right there on Monterey. So I just add that to it, and in case you're interested in going down there and becoming more of an activist and agitating for truth as to how to address this climate crisis that we're in. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Anything at all? Once, twice. We are now adjourned to closed session. We're now open for public comment on our closed session. Is there anyone who has any public comment that they want to make on our closed session coming up? All right, thank you very much. We're now going to go into our
Closed session, that's agenda item 6.
Yes, agenda item number 6. Thank you.